Hey fellas, hope you guys doing great. In today's video we will see, what if Naruto reincarnated as Alicorn and built Harem with Luna, Chrysalis, Rarity, Lyra? Part 3. Huge shout out to Ethereal Trixster for this story. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe and like the video. So let's start the story. Deep in the Everfree forest, 5 ponies stood on staring at the cave that they believed would solve their dispute. So who's going in the creepy dark cave? The grayish-coated filly looked on, hoping some pony would step forward to do it. Sadly, this was not the case. I'm not going in there, it's dark and it's full of those Ursa thingies. The group of fillies rolled their eyes as Snips looked on at his lifelong buddy Snails, nodding in agreement as the two glanced at the filly that so proudly led them here. What about you, Appaloom? You are the one that brought us here, shouldn't you be the one that goes in the cave? Now hold your hooves, I brought you all here to help wake up the thing, but I'm sure not going in the cave with those things in there. You were the one that brought it up, so you should go in first. The group slowly bickered among themselves, their voices echoing through the cave, stirring all its inhabitants from their slumber. Enough, some pony come with me already, I'm tired, and cold, and not scared of some stupid Ursa thing, so either one of you 3 unicorns get your butt in that cave, or so help me I'm going to yell. The Pegasus looked on as the cold duo slowly walked forward with her. See, was that so hard? Now let's go get us some Ursas. She ignored the chattering teeth of the 2 fillies behind her, their horns lighting the dark cave. She wasn't scared Rainbow Dash would save them, and she would be right about who knew the best pony ever. Scootaloo, I don't think there is anything in here, we've gone far enough, so let's head home. Snips shivered as the filly glared at him, pointing her hoof at the 2 fillies still visible as they waved back at them. Sorry, I'll be quiet now. The portly unicorn sighed as the Pegasus picked up the pace, practically pushing Snails in front of her to light the way. The 2 fillies disappeared in the distance, the entrance gone as they pressed on, only stopping as they approached a dark blue thing hindering their path. So I guess that means we head back now, since we can't go any further, Snips proclaimed, hoping the Pegasus would call it a night and forget about this whole thing. No way I'm going back without one of those stupid Ursa things, and no stupid blue thing is going to stop me. The Pegasus filly's hind hooves slammed into the blue obstruction, hoping it would just disappear as she looked on at the 2 colts backed away from her. What's up with you two? It's like you just saw one of those Ursas. Her neck craned as the obtrusion magically got smaller, her body turning itself around to see the wonder as her purple eyes traveled slowly upwards inch by inch, noticing how long the obstacle had gotten longer instead. The Pegasus shivered as their search finally ended as the Ursa lazily stood before them. The 2 colts looked slowly at each other as the Ursa's gaze directed towards the duo, wondering what they could do against the massive beast. They gazed at their filly friend, shaking as she gaped at the monstrosity's size, its front left paw moving over the filly as it shook the nearby ground as it landed. Snails, I think we should start galloping about now. The colt ignored the look of shock on his friend's face as he started backing away. We can't just leave Scootaloo behind. The golden-coated colt slowly backed away from his friend, expecting something else entirely when he first opened his mouth. The colt just glared back, hoping he could talk some reason into his companion as the Ursa continued towards them with another step. Look, Scootaloo is either gone or perfectly safe. We on the other hand are not, so let's leave while we can before that thing eats us both. The unicorn cried out as Snail's horns slowly died down as he approached Snips. We're coming back for Scootaloo, right? Of course, we just need some pony to beat this thing. The golden colt nodded slowly as the 2 began galloping away from the giant bear as it roared in anger at them, its black eyes dead set on devouring the 2 as a small snack, its jaw hanging loosely as the 3 ran out of the cave, 2 dead set on heading towards Ponyville to end the beast's reign of terror and then go save Scootaloo. The duo weaved between the trees, ignoring the roars of anger as the Ursa destroyed the surrounding foliage in search of them. His only clue was the faint glow from Snail's horn. Hey, turn it off or he's going to follow us. That's the plan though, isn't it? Bring it to Ponyville and then some pony beats it up. Yeah, but we're not supposed to get killed, process. The portly colt screamed out as another tree fell to the ground, echoing out as it collapsed to the ground. The 2 fillies looked on in confusion as the duo of colts galloped past them, screaming at the top of their lungs about not wanting to die and something like, "We'll be back, Scootaloo," which only made the 2 fillies think harder on that subject. Sweetie Belle didn't need further explanation as a giant bear came chasing after the two, ignoring the two Fias as it ran off into the woods. Do you think that, Scootaloo? The pale yellow earth filly couldn't choke it out the last words as tears streamed down her face at the very thought of losing a classmate. Of course not, Scootaloo is the toughest out of us all. She probably got lost in the cave or something. The grayish unicorn looked down into the cave as she slowly moved forward into wanting to find her friend now more than ever, her face full of concern for her longtime filly friend. Hey wait, where do you think you're going? Inside the cave, duh! How else am I going to go get Scootaloo then? Shouldn't we go an adult or something? We can't risk it, Apple Bloom. What if we forget and Scootaloo gets hurt? It's our fault that she's in there, so I'm going in there whether you come with me or not. The filly's horn glowed with a light green magical aura lighting only a small part of the caves inside. Apple Bloom, are you coming with me or are you going to stay out here, alone, in the woods? The filly was already scared out of her mind, so she was hoping to coax the earth filly into going in with her as she searched for Scootaloo. For the record, this was an incredibly dumb idea, and I still think we should go get help. Duly noted. Trixie stared on at the Alicorn before her alone. It didn't really surprise her that he was alone, but his excuse needed a little work. So you met him, but he didn't want to come back with you, is that right? The Alicorn nodded, as she plopped to the ground. He'd been here for a good 10 minutes. I'm sorry, Trixie. Or Prince apologizing. This would be interesting if you haven't been doing it since you came here. Please say something else or leave already. The Alicorn's stare was one of confusion as the blue unicorn. Yeah, like I said, I'm sorry. Crescent would have come to you probably without me trying to get him to talk to you, but I kind of ruined that. You make it sound like Trixie's chances of meeting him are all but nil. Trixie has planned on meeting him again for 2 years. This is just a setback. So what was the plan when you came to Ponyville? To embarrass you in front of the citizens of Ponyville and use your embarrassment as a calling card to drag that idiot out of Manhattan and face me. But things worked out better than Trixie could have ever hoped for. The unicorn giggled as she watched Naruto gape at her bold proclamation of using him to drag out her brother. Prince, you did ask Trixie her plan and she has delivered, so no complaints. Boo! The Alicorn paused as he watched a single colt run toward them. His breathing labored as he recognized the dull look on the grayish opal-coated colt's face. Naruto, Trixie, you have to help us. The colt looked on as the two older ponies ignored his outburst, going back to their conversation. A friend of yours, Trixie presumes? Kind of. I mean, we met before all three of us went to your performance. Hey. Really? So they are more of an acquaintance then? That sounds so impersonal though, Trixie. Hey, we're talking to you. So what do you propose then, oh great prince? How about a loose friend then? I guess that works. Hey! Quit ignoring us, and giving each other the googly eyes. We need your help, Naruto. The portly colt shuddered as the two glared at him. The only thing stopping him from retreating was that he needed them more than they scared him. Fine, so what did you want me for? Do you need me to win another bet or something? No, it's something much worse. We went into the Everfree Forest. And you both are out of the Everfree Forest if either of you haven't noticed yet, or does Trixie seem the type to sleep in the forest? No, but that's not it. It's a real problem this time. Why do I find this hard to believe? Let them speak, Prince, or are you still miffed that they caught you? Shut up, Trixie, it's not like that. Didn't some pony tell Rude not to look at some pony when they talk to you? Hey, listen, there's an Ursa Major coming. Both ponies blinked as they both registered what the short, portly colt said. You're lying. I'm not lying. One's coming to Ponyville now. You do realize that the last sighting of an Ursa Major was over 600 years ago. Then what was that all about, defeating an Ursa Major? A lie, of course. Trixie is a show pony, and as such I must adore the crowd and capture their attention so that she may entertain them with my countless tricks. Then why did you tell us? I'm sure he's going to tell every pony that it's a lie, and I am going to tell every pony I know, and that's including both princesses. Trixie can tell you that neither of you will tell her secrets or else, and I'll tell you why as well. The showmare smirked as the two looked on at her in confusion. It's because you owe me still, Prince, and this is how you can repay me. No buts about it. The mare's smile grew even wider as she stared on at the colt. And how would you like it if Trixie told your parents about you going into the Everfree forest late at night? Trixie thinks they would be pretty mad and even punish a certain colt. Trixie looked as smug as she sounded, ignoring the golden colt approaching them. So let's forget this whole Ursa business, okay? Hey Snips, I think I lost him. Naruto stared on as the newest addition to their conversation slowly walked forward to them. Yeah, it wasn't easy tricking that thing, but it's gone, no doubt about it. The Alicorn stared back and forth between the two as the two youngsters conversed with each other. So you think we can go rescue Scootaloo now? The words slowly echoed through his mind as rescue Scootaloo came from the snail's mouth. We promised her, so we have to go back and find her. Naruto blinked again, his horn flared to life, burning a bright red as he looked on at them. What did you two do? Start talking now! The Alicorn glared, daring any pony else to speak up besides Snails. You said Scootaloo is in trouble, tell me where she is. The Alicorn nodded slowly as the colt told him everything that had transpired between the 5 ponies. So you're telling me that you left Scootaloo in the cave alone, and that thing is headed back to her as we speak? Even if I galloped at my fastest pace, there is no way I can beat the damn thing back and find Scootaloo without fighting it. The red magical aura swirled around him as he grew brighter and angrier at the hopelessness he was feeling. Yeah, but he's not going to go back to the cave now. As if on cue to the Alicorn, the Ursa appeared through the grove of trees, its eyes settling on Naruto. That's an Ursa major, right? Yeah, that's about right. Trixie can't believe how large it is, though it seems unreal. Move, I'm angry and this thing is the only one I can take my anger out on, so I don't want you to get hurt, okay? Trixie watched the Alicorn slowly walk forward, the swirling vortex of magic around him dying down as a tail of magic formed on his ass. Scratch that, go look for your brother. This isn't going to be fun for either of us, and I'd rather this night end on a good note for you. Trixie didn't budge as she watched him stand in front of the Ursa Major. She had to admit that no matter her personal problems, this was something she couldn't afford to miss. The bear's paw lifted into the air as it roared out through the town, challenging anything that dared to get in its way of the meal it planned, and with a swift motion his paw slammed down onto the orange prince, dust billowing at the collision. It roared out as it lifted its paw again to crush whatever was left of the poor dead prince. What power that thing has! It destroyed him in an instant. The dust stopped as the tail shot out, knocking the paw back off course, destroying Trixie's cart. My home, that bastard! It destroyed my home! She didn't even stare at the demolished wagon as the anger rolled off her, glaring at the lumbering giant, her anger only fading as the tail shot out, slamming into its jaw, blood spurting from its lower jaw, a few drops covering the Alicorn's forehead. The large blow sent the beast crashing backwards into the ground as it roared in pain. What the hell, I thought you were dead. You better kill that bastard then. I told you to leave. I'm not going to miss this, and besides, he made it personal now. Both watched as it slowly rise from the ground, the Alicorn waiting for it to regain its bearings, his hooves stomping on the ground as countless ponies started flocking to the center of town to see the Alicorn to defend them. Everyone needs to leave or you can't really fight this thing. The Alicorn slowly nodded to himself as he realized what was going on, or what just happened. Wait, where the hell were you? It's been 2 weeks since we even talked, and I've done everything to try to talk to you. He could practically see the Pegasus sighing inside of his head. I've been sleeping, of course. Besides, you didn't need me apple bucking or learning how to fly, idiot. The Alicorn's wings twitched in annoyance at the not-so-subtle jab at his pride. The bear made it worse, taking its time getting up. Why the hell is it taking so long? You think it would be on its feet by now, right? The Alicorn nodded slowly again, his anger dying down as the Pegasus voiced what he wanted to say. He was truly thankful for a voice of reason at a time like this. A unicorn slowly brushed by him, only slamming his flank into his side to gain his attention. So I take it you have a way to beat this, Naruto, or did you pick a fight with an Ursa minor for no reason? The Alicorn blinked as the stallion walked up to him. Well, I'll take it from the stupid look on your face that you didn't know what it was and started beating the crap out of it. Naruto shook his head as both watched the minor finally beginning to regain its bearings. Wait, how did you find me? And why the hell are you here? I can handle this. That was easy. I wasn't too far from the center of town, and well, that red magic beacon just begs to be investigated, because I can name the number of ponies that can do that on all of my hooves. The unicorn nodded slowly as it contemplated what to say about the Alicorn's foolish actions. You know that thing is a baby, right? The Alicorn stopped mid-hoof as he glanced at his bodyguard. I call horse shit on this. There is no way in all of Celestia that this thing is a baby, so stop bucking with me. I'm not kidding, that's an Ursa minor, but damn, it's freaking big. It makes me wonder where the mother is. Did you say mother? Naruto's magical tail slammed into the bear, sending it crashing into the ground again, only getting a slow nod for his trouble. Is it bigger than this? Probably, but it's still possible that it could be the same size. I've never seen one before, so don't take my word for it. Naruto stared down at the Ursa, his mind racing as he tried to process the information. Scootaloo was in danger still. Even if fought this thing to the death, he still had to find her and pray that this thing's mother didn't devour the filly. Only one option came to his mind as he wanted to save every pony. Crescent, can you do me a favor? You want a favor from me? The unicorn card still dangling in midair as he rubbed his foot in the ground. I need you to beat this thing so I can go and save Scootaloo from being eaten. They both studied each other before the unicorn slowly nodded. Go ahead, I'm sure I can think of something to knock him out. If not, I'll just find someone who can. Naruto slowly smiled as he lifted Snips up and started running off towards the ever-free forest. Now how do I defeat a Ursa minor without killing it? The unicorn slowly looked back at the bear, growling at him. Well, at least he's paying attention to me. Now to figure out how to deal with this thing. Well, does any pony have a good idea to stop this thing? The unicorn looked back to see a unicorn he wasn't expecting trot forward. His sister was gone and replaced with one twilight sparkle. Scootaloo stood still as she searched the area for any source of light, only to come up empty-hoofed. Some pony, any pony, please help me. The tears stopped flowing after the few minutes of being alone. Now she just wanted this day to end already. Her wings flapped as fast as they could, still keeping her grounded, a nervous twitch all the same. The faint echoes of voices could be heard through the cave, each all too familiar to the Pegasus filly, but she couldn't tell which way to start walking. Come on, Scootaloo, think. How do I get their attention? She looked on, only sighing in frustration, plopping on the ground as she sighed to herself, realizing how scared she was about to look. Any pony, please help! Her voice echoed through the cave, hoping that the two fillies would find her. I'm telling you, she's musta left here already, because there's no way in tarnation she'd ever stay in here. Sweetie Belle rolled her eyes as the Earth filly pleaded with her to go back. It wasn't something the unicorn would ever do. Abandoning a friend was something that was frowned upon by every pony she admired. I'm scared too, Apple Loom, but we have to find her or something might happen to her. Like what? There could be another one of those things. Fine, but still, how do you know if she's in here? As if on cue, the duo heard Scootaloo's plea for help, startling them both. See, I told you she is in here, so let's get moving. We are getting close, I know it. The Pegasus filly looked on at the bleak darkness, a violet light finally piercing through the darkness, and the Pegasus filly slowly inched towards it, like a moth to the flame. That must be them. So great, I bet they brought Rainbow Dash and every pony else back to help look for me. Her wings fluttered back and forth in excitement as she slowly approached the violet-colored light. The filly jumped in excitement as she felt the warmth exuding off the light, galloping as fast as she could, stopping in the clearing. Her eyes widening as she looked on at the figure before her. WH, what is that thing? The large figure snored as the filly began to cower beneath the sheer size of the creature. What is this thing? The filly backpedaled away, cowering behind the nearest stalagmite she could find, her head peeking out behind as one of the bear's eyes opened, his head only rising as it searched the area for its cub. Its head turned left and right frantically in search of its child, slowly rising to a full stand before roaring out loud, its roar echoing through the cave, shaking the ground beneath Scootaloo's hooves. The poor filly could only stumble forward, catching herself, to only be standing in front of the towering giant of a bear. Its eye narrowed on the poor filly, trying to think why would such a morsel come to her. Scootaloo's legs shook as it sniffed her, before snarling as it attempted a lazy chomp at the Pegasus filly, only to hit nothing but air. The bear only snarled more as its front paws slammed into the ground, the Pegasus already fleeing from its sight back the way it came. It would chase the filly, hoping it would prove an appetizer for her, in the search for her son. The orange filly dashed between the stalagmites, galloping as fast as her little legs could carry her, only stopping as she plowed into a familiar face. Oh God, you came in, Sweetie Belle, we need to go now. Her wings fluttered as she picked herself back up, her hooves moving in place as she ignored the looks of confusion the two were giving her. Don't give me that look, something chasing me, and it's big, like bigger than that Ursa Major I saw. She could see the two roll their eyes in Sweetie Belle's glowing aura. The ground shook slightly as the Pegasus looked behind her in fear. Calm down, Scootaloo, we're here and all. Besides, we're the only ones in the cave. You probably just saw a shadow or something. Sweetie Belle could only watch as the Pegasus looked back at her with the most frightened expression she'd ever seen on her filly friend, before running past her, tears in her eyes. The two fillies stood in shock for a second before chasing after the Pegasus filly, both pondering if being alone in the dark cave scared her that badly. Well, come on then, we should go after her or else she might hurt herself. The two nodded, galloping after her as the Pegasus' flank was the only thing that could be seen through the aura light as they all finally slowed down, exiting the cave standing under the full moon. Now what has you all spooked, Scootaloo? Because we sure as hay didn't see one living critter in there when we went searching for ya. We need to run right now, that thing was chasing me and I'd beat, so please let's just go home and warn every pony what's about to happen. The Pegasus looked on at the cave, backing towards the forest, slowly ready to run at the slightest sight of purple. She ignored the looks of concern written across her classmates' faces. Look, I'm not crazy and I'm not imagining things. There is something in that cave and it's hugs, so let's leave. She jumped in fright as a twig snapped behind her, scooting backwards towards the three fillies. Well, Trixie, imagined that you would all be grateful if someone came to save you, but it looks like some poor fool scared the poor Pegasus filly. The three looked on as the showmare walked out, dragging an exhausted Snails behind her. You four should scamper back home. The unicorn's eyes turned toward the cave, ignoring the three fillies surrounding her. Miss Trixie, you can't stay, there's something big is coming, real big. The unicorn sighed lightly, brushing the Pegasus filly's mane as she looked down at her. The fear in her eyes reminded her of such a distant memory of her past. She hugged the filly as she cried into her coat. The unicorn really was at ends, trying to figure what to do next. Not that again, there is nothing in that cave, Scootaloo. I'm telling every pony the truth, why don't any of you believe me? Trixie believes you, it's why Trixie is here after all. Who else but the great and powerful Trixie could defeat an Ursa Major? No pony, that's who. The showmare could hear the muffled protests as she went back to crying in her coat. Scootaloo, that's your name, right? I need you to listen to me very carefully. It's very important that you four leave and you go find the prince, he's looking for you. What about you? Someone has to stay, silly filly. The unicorn only smiled as she pushed the Pegasus away, smiling as she slowly trotted away. Thank you, Trixie, for this. She listened as the ponies took off, and she couldn't help but smile at the filly's foolish notion. Well, this is everything Trixie has prepared herself for. I just didn't expect it would be against what Trixie bragged about defeating all this time. Talk about the irony. Her horn began to take a pink glow as a single thread appeared over the cave's entrance, the unicorn's eyes following the threads taking place. The net finally finished. I hate this spell so much, but it's the only that saved those ponies. She didn't bother with any other sort of spell as the Ursa Major came billowing out of the cave, it roaring in anger as the strands of magic thread broke free. I wonder what it's seeing right now. The unicorn slowly backed away as she watched it thrash back and forth, its eyes seeing unknown tortures. What's happening in Trixie's spell? Red, that's all she saw. Her child impaled by some random orange pony, another of her kind cut down by these miserable ponies. She thought the two was safe hiding away in the everfree forest, but yet here they were, hundreds of various ponies ready to kill her. Each claw swipe did nothing but thin the ranks, as she was sure more took the place of their fallen comrades. She ignored the countless tendrils of magic that attempted to pull her down to the ground, all failing as she snapped free. More ponies approached, all charging at her as her front left paw crashed down onto them, bringing another flash of light rang out as all the ponies disappeared, all but one standing alone. They were back in the woods, and the one that it saw first standing there, another one of these ponies' parlor tricks, the drips of blood traveling down her forehead, the forestry destroyed around her, a testament to the pony's bravery. You hit me a lot faster than Trixie expected, but the nightmare net was intended for some pony else. Her eyes didn't falter as the beast just growled at her, stepping closer and closer towards her, its jaw opening ready to devour her. Every pony, I'm sorry. Her eyes watched as the jaw clamped down and everything went pink, as the Major roared out in victory. Crescent looked back between Twilight and the miner that was once lulled into a deep sleep only for its mother's roar to wake its fuzzy butt up. Twilight, are you okay? The unicorn's cards ready to snap at a moment's notice to protect the lavender mare. The bear played away with a ball of cards created in haste to save Twilight's sparkle, the cards folded under the massive strength bouncing to the next paw, narrowly avoiding its destruction. I'm tired, that's all it missed when it stretched Crescent. He sighed to himself as he thought of the danger she was just put in. Don't worry about me, just find a way to put this big guy to sleep and do it peacefully if you can. The unicorn contemplated with what she said. Defeating it was now a bigger priority than anything else. His mind riddled with countless ideas, yet none seemed to hold weight in subduing the creature. Can you find Rainbow Dash and Applejack in this crowd? Yeah, of course, but why? I don't think they can help us. They can with what I have planned. Do you mind sharing it with me? Just find them before the ball crumbles. That magic can only last so long. The unicorn walked away in frustration at the lack of trust displayed by him. Applejack, Rainbow Dash, where are you? Everfree Forest. Naruto stopped galloping as he watched 4 ponies walk out into the clearing, all debating with each other. I can't believe I found you guys. Thanks Celestia, you all are okay. Naruto noticed the tears streaming down the eyes, not a dry between the lot. So what happened back there? Did some pony get hurt? The group of fillies only nodded as they looked back into the Everfree Forest. It was Trixie. She came and told us to leave while she stayed to fight. The colt broke out in tears at the thought of some pony else giving her life to save his. It didn't feel real. Snails couldn't accept the fact that she was dead. Not yet. Naruto, you have to go back to save her. She's in trouble. Where can I find her? Just find the giant bear, I'm sure she's there. His gaze looked up at the towering figure standing over the trees. His hold on Snips let go, letting him drop to the ground. Snips, every pony else go home. I need to go save Trixie. He didn't bother listening to their hoofsteps as each pony left him alone. This thing demanded attention, and he'd be damned if he dropped his guard around it. So any ideas how to beat it, Senna? The Alicorn stopped any train of thought as a gut-wrenching roar came from the bear's mouth. You don't beat something like this, Naruto, you're going to have to kill it. No, this wasn't something the Alicorn would ever do. How could look any pony in the eye if he killed this creature? This one isn't up for debate, Naruto. This creature will devour every pony in Ponyville if it isn't stopped here, and who knows how many else as well. The Alicorn froze again as the giant took its time sniffing the area around it, most likely for any sort of prey. We can't just kill it. How about we hurt so it doesn't ever come back? He personally wished that the thing would just up and leave, but Naruto was sure as hell that it wasn't going to leave Ponyville or Equestria alone. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't going to be easy, but you will have to do it. The Alicorn galloped forth, his mind settled on finding Trixie before he did anything stupid. Ponyville. I found them also. Now will you tell me the plan? The lavender mare glared at the stallion, watching the miner play with the ball of cards still. He answer me, why are we getting Applejack and Rainbow Dash involved? Her hoof stomped the ground in protest as he finally turned towards her, his eyes fixed on her, and the 2 maras nervously shaking their hooves behind her. Oh, that's simple, we're going to knock it out. That's why you brought these 2 here. The 3 maras looked on in confusion as the unicorn smiled at the group. See, here's the plan. Twilight and I are going to restrain the baby's paws while you, my good friend Applejack, will lasso its mouth shut, and Dash, you have the most dangerous part. The unicorn looked away back to the bear. He could practically see the bear losing interest in the toy. Dash, I need you to slam into that bear's skull. With how fast you fly, you should be able to knock him out with one hit. Crescent turned back towards the group. Hesitance was the only thing he could see in Applejack and Twilight's eyes. Dash's only held a spark of interest at the thought of being the one to stop the large monstrosity. Listen, Sugar Cube, I know you want to be smart and all, but can't we just get Twilight here to take care of that thing? You know, lull it back to sleep and whatnot? The cowpony looked on at the group, hoping that she didn't have to be the voice of reason, especially with 2 of the smartest ones we know. Yeah, Applejack's right. I can rock him to sleep again, and then we'll just put him back where he belongs. There is a few problems with that. What are those? 'Cause I can't see any problems with this sort of thinking. One Naruto is probably fighting the mother now. He watched the two nod in agreement. What Egghead here is trying to say is if roars again then we have to put it to sleep. Instead let's just beat it up and deliver it without getting eaten. See, even Dash gets the idea and she's all for the plan. Because the plan is stupid and some pony can still get hurt, why can't we think of something else? Listen, Applejack, we need to do something. And as stupid as this plan might be, it can work if you help us out. Applejack just lowered her hat at the stallion's pleading. She would help the three so no pony got hurt in the process. Let's just do this before I change my mind. But how are you going to stop it from tossing me around like a bushel of apples? Magic, of course, will keep you grounded and hold its legs down. I guess that sounds like a plan. Thanks, all of you. The four trotted forward, all knowing what they had to do, the ball of cards popping, covering the front paws almost instantaneously, pressing them against the ground. Well, that takes care of my problem. Every pony else know what to do. The group slowly surrounded the bear, Applejack twirling her lasso, waiting for the perfect chance to muzzle it as Twilight already began forcing the back paws firmly on the ground. Crescent watched as the bear roared, only for its mouth to be lassoed and roped in by the cowpony. Her body steadied as it attempted to thrash its head back and forth, only to growl as it remained unmoved. Rainbow Dash, it's your turn. The mare nodded as she took off. Her arc was perfect, everything flawless to the stallion's eyes as a snap rang out, the rope breaking free. The Maras watched in horror as the miner turned its head toward the dive-bombing Pegasus, ready to devour her. Twilight blinked and missed everything as the blood splatter across the Pegasus scared her, but not as much as the spire of cards rested next to her wings. The blood slowly dripping as the miner collapsed to the ground, dead to Equestria. What in the name of Celestia happened? Twilight turned towards Applejack. She was right, this shouldn't have happened. Even if the rope snapped, there must have been another way to beat the Ursa miner. What happened was the rope snapped and I didn't want a friend to die, so I acted first. The stallion's eyes traveled upwards, glancing at the cyan Pegasus, her frantic wings flapping as she slowly dropped to the ground. Rainbow Dash, I'm sorry for that. I didn't think that would ever happen. He could see the tears forming in her eyes as she finally dropped to the ground. I'll leave you alone now. Don't, please don't go. Her voice croaked out as the tears dropped freely from her magenta eyes. His hoofs stopped as she steadily approached him, her wings folded as she walked up to him. Thank you for saving me, she cried freely as he stood next to her, his hoof wrapping around as the sobs continued. I'm sorry. The words echoed through the town as the Ursa miner dissolved behind the pair, the stars returning to the place they once was in the night sky. With Naruto. Naruto stopped at the clearing, the major clearly in front of him, and no sign of Trixie from what he could see. This rattled him. Did she really just up and leave after she told them all to run? No, he wouldn't have done something that cowardly. Trixie, where are you? His eyes searched the area, hoping for a brief shine of magic, only to narrowly miss a well-placed swipe from the Ursa major. See, she's angry, Naruto, and we need to deal with this while Trixie gets away. Simple, right? No, it wasn't as simple as Senna made things seem. He truly believed that Unicorn wouldn't have abandoned those Vias, not without some sort of plan. Senna, please be quiet. We need to find her first, and then we can deal with that thing. Any protest stopped as he dodged another swipe from the bear's paws, his senses helping him again. What the hell's your problem? I didn't do anything yet to piss you off. The Alicorn jumped back, his wings opening, slowing his fall as he landed on his hind hooves. What the hell, Senna? A little warning would be nice. The Alicorn waited for any sort of response, expecting some sort of reason for her lack of response. Only silence echoed through his head. Fine, I'll beat it myself. Just stay silent then. His hooves shook with anticipation as his wings started flapping, only getting him about 3 feet off the ground before he dropped down to the ground. I guess flying's still out of the question. The Alicorn folded his wings back as he ran around the beast, trying to escape its sight, only for each piece of cover he took. It's no use hiding or trying to flee from it, it has your scent. The Alicorn didn't bother responding as another paw came swiping at him, his tail blocking the forceful blow, only for him to be pushed off the ground into the air, only to barely dodge a bite from the creature. It smells her son on you. The blood in your hair is a dead giveaway, and a mother never forgets the smell of her son. The Alicorn only spread his wings, floating to its left, his eyes following the body, trying to find some way to topple this beast. his eyes locking on thing in its lower left body. There inside the belly of the beast was Trixie floating on a piece of dirt, probably in the stomach. You found her, now what? The impassiveness of the Pegasus was starting to irritate him as he floated down to the ground, the bear glaring at him. We rescue her, of course. Might I remind you she's inside that thing's belly? So I'll just find a way to get her out, simple as that. The Alicorn's eyes turned to the dripping maw as a plan began to formulate in the back of his head. Your plan is stupid, forget it. The bear mouth slowly moved toward them, the Alicorn's cerulean eyes following each move, his tail ready to act if need be. No, I like this idea, I just need to work on the delivery. His magical tail braced itself as the mouth plowed itself into the ground, closing as the Ursa Major devoured the earth where Naruto once stood. His tail wrapping around the beast's neck as he choked the beast tighter and tighter. He could hear the claws scraping at the ground as it nudged its head, trying to free itself. Just stay still, you can wake up later. His voice echoed through the Ursa's ears as its front paw finally dropped to the ground unconscious. So you choked him out, now what? The Alicorn growled as his eyes settled on the mouth of the beast. We go in, of course. His magical tail wrapping around the front tooth as he began his descent into the bear's stomach. Pink it was all she saw inside the Ursa Major, but that was probably thanks to Horn lighting up the area around her. Trixie personally imagined after being eaten that would be the end of everything, but no, it had to devour her alive. You giant ass, you just had to eat me, didn't you? Well, Trixie has been through much worse. Trixie just can't think of anything that tops this situation at the moment. Her voice echoed through the giant's stomach as the dirt below her floated just above the digestive acid. She could feel the dirt crumbling slowly under her hooves. It was only a matter of time before she'd end up falling to her death, she was sure of it, and this thing's constant movement wasn't helping her situation at all either. Well, Trixie has a few minutes to live, let's make them peaceful. The unicorn just sighed as she glanced at another piece of dirt falling into the digestive tract. The stomach gurgled something as all movement stopped, her platform of dirt getting smaller and smaller. Hello, any pony in there? The voice echoed through the stomach as Trixie watched as the Prince of Ponyville peeking his head through the stomach. His eyes scanning the area, looking for something, his eyes locking onto hers as he smiled at the confused unicorn. See, I knew I'd find her. The Alicorn grinned at the confusion written all across the unicorn's face as he motioned her to come toward him. Why are you here, and how did you find me? The unicorn looked on impassively as he lowered himself some more, still smirking as he held out his hooves, trying to coax her into jumping towards him. Trixie is not going to jump, especially when Trixie doesn't know why you're here in the first place. What else would I be here for? I'm here to rescue you, Trixie, so jump to me so I can pull both of our flanks out of this mess. He could see the look of confusion disappear as a small smile graced her lips. Now can we leave? I don't want to be inside this thing when it wakes up. It was as simple as plummeting into the throat of an Ursa Major. All it took was a jump. The Alicorn embraced the mare as tight as he could. Naruto's only loosened the further they went up a quick 10 minutes, and they were safely back on the tongue. So you're not going to tell any pony about this, right? I mean me getting eaten? She watched as the magical tail faded away. Not a soul, cause then I would have to explain how I got you out of its stomach, and I don't need any pony telling me how stupid that was. He looked on as she slid through the bear's mouth, landing on the soft patch of grass its head rested on. His hooves shook as he freed himself from the wet prison, his eyes finally seeing the moon in its glory as the stars gave off a small twinkle. Come on, let's go back to Ponyville. Do you think it's okay back there? Yeah, they have tons of options. Besides, it's just a baby. How much damage can it do? Pain erupted through his side as he ragdolled off the grassy patches strewn across the ground. Even with all the pain he was in, he knew it could have been much worse if he actually broke something. All the pain was nothing compared to the anger he felt, watching the bear force itself back onto his front paws, snarling at the cowering mare in front of it. Naruto's hooves shook as he stood up, his magic flaring with whatever magic he had left. Wings, please do this just once, that's all I'm asking. He grunted as they began to flap, slowly rising him off the ground, dragging his body as he flew across, slamming into the bear's right front paw, toppling it over once again. Gah, I guess that's what I get for forcing about a month's worth training into a one short burst. He ignored the blood dripping down his nose as he glared at the Ursa Major, his horns magic fading as the tail disappeared into thin air. Of all the times for this to happen, it does it now. The Alicorn cried out as he felt the wind from a wild claw swipe meant to kill him. His body rang in bliss as he felt magic slowly coursing through his body. You've done more than enough to earn, so please just kill this thing and let me sleep already. Senna's voice rung through his head as he felt the magic pulsate through his horn. His tail made of magic came back in full force. The tail swished back and forth as he waited for the Ursa Major's next action, its front right paw slowly lifting into the air as the tail lashed out, blood coating the Alicorn's face as he looked on at the sight before him. I'm sorry, but you didn't really leave me no choice in the matter. His magical construct of a tail pierced the bear's skull, the once angry eyes now lifeless as the tail dissipated, letting the former husk drop to the ground. You can come out now, Trixie, I killed it. His voice croaked as he said the word. He had done it so effortlessly, and that's what made it so wrong to him. He could feel the subtle glances from Trixie as the corpse began to glow, dissolving before their very eyes. What's happening? I don't know, but it's so beautiful, you know. The unicorn could only beam at the miracle happening before her, something she knew that she'd remember for the rest of her life. Trixie, after this is done, wanna go home? Pretty forward, aren't you? I meant to talk to your brother. Oh, yeah, I'd like that. The unicorn couldn't help but blush as she felt his wing draped across her frame, pulling her closer as they watched a miracle happen. Naruto yawned as he watched Trixie take his own room right from in front of his very eyes. The trip back was nothing but her praises at such a marvel they both witnessed. All it did was remind him of what he had just done. His cerulean eyes scanned the second door closed, his bodyguard probably tired from the problem laid before him. Hopefully he found a way to make things right with the Ursa Minor. He looked through the house, the guest rooms still unfurnished, as he sighed a night on the couch. It was then. I wish I could take it back, Senna. What happened? If I knew it was that easy, I wouldn't have tried to knock it out. The Alicorn waited in silence as he didn't expect a response from the Pegasus. Maybe one day she'd answer him when he wanted to talk. Until then he just dreamed the night away. Naruto's dream. The forest devoid of life. As he slowly followed the bare path, he already knew where he was going. It just bothered him. He couldn't stop and turn back. His eyes focusing on the battle in front of him, there he was standing before the Ursa Major seconds before he ended the fight with one quick motion. His body felt cold watching as his tail plowed through the Ursa Major's head, something he regretted doing. Naruto cringed as the blood splashed across the ground, the memory of him bathed in it. This is a very unsettling you are having, Naruto. I imagined your fears would be something along the lines of your friends dying or failing a promise, not anything as dark as this. The Alicorn blinked as he turned to his left to see the light blue Alicorn of the night next to him, the smell of lavender wafting off her misty mane as she giggled at him. This is a dream, isn't it? Well, you caught on faster than the other ponies I've visited, but yes, you are correct, Naruto. This isn't a normal dream, though. It's a nightmare, and one I fear you'll continue to have for a long time. The mare could only shake her head as the scenery changed into Canterlot Castle. The Alicorn stared in awe as she slowly walked in through the front doors, his hooves keeping pace with the mare. Naruto, do you know what you killed last night? The Alicorn nodded slowly as she slowly began to lead him through the halls. Did you know I'm the reason they were like that? She watched him gape at her as she took a left into some unknown part of the castle. Wait, you made them? Yes, I made them, Naruto. Back when Equestria was young and Celestia and I just arrived, things weren't looking so well for any pony during those tough times, and the local attacks didn't make it any better. Many ponies didn't have any experience defending themselves, and we could only do so much, so I gave the stars life, to protect us from the creatures of the ever-free forest. She didn't even need to look back to tell that had struck a chord. You gave them life. Did they mean anything to you at all? Naruto snarled as she turned towards him. The only thing stopping him from knocking some sense into her was that it wouldn't change anything. They did, Naruto. They did. Why not now? Because they betrayed that trust one gave them. What do you think they did after defeating the creatures? She could see his nostrils flare as she continued talking. He wasn't going to stop unless he understood everything. They attacked us, Naruto. My own creations devoured hundreds of citizens just because I made a reckless action and gave the stars life. She could see his face softening only the slightest. While every pony else hid and blamed me for my actions, I was the only out there fighting them off, killing any that dared to approach me or the citizens. The mayor could see something twinkling in his eyes. What you killed tonight, Naruto, was a mistake from my past that should have never existed in the first place. Luna turned away, not wanting to take any sort of pity, especially from the ones she cared so much for. So why didn't you kill them all? I was one Alicorn against 100 of those things. Sure, ponies went on a Ursa hunt and destroyed countless numbers of them, but the night sky was never complete. I could tell just from looking at the stars how many of them are still alive, and judging by the number of stars I gained tonight, Ponyville killed the last of them. Her throat tightened as memories of all the good she had done, making them only for it to come crashing down as she took all the blame. Couldn't you have undone the spell or something? You gave them life. How hard could it be to undo something like that? Naruto, you don't understand. This wasn't some animation spell. This spell was meant to give life to a magical construct. A what? The thing you do for your tail? Oh, that's what it was called. I've tried to call it something since I use it all the time, but I guess I need something to go with construct then. Luna's eye twitched as he tried naming off some of his more creative names. How about we get back on the subject at hand, Naruto? Yeah, go on. So about these constructs. Yes, alone with just magic it's simple to control them, but with the proper spell you could easily give them life, and that's what I did. They were given one order, Naruto, to kill the attacking creatures that was their prey, and they devoured them any chance they got. It only took a few weeks before every creature of the Everfree Forest stayed away from our city in fear of the beasts within it, and without any attacks our guardians had lost their purpose, and without that one thing driving them everything changed. They began to watch us, when the ponies were hard at work, each one's eyes following some weak stallion or mare just ripe for the picking. This continued for a week or so, and then at the dead of night they attacked without hesitation, devouring the young and old as I fought back with a few others to drive the creatures away. She could feel his breath on her wings as she stopped midway, only for him to stop next to her. We did it, but not without sacrifices, and that's what made it worse. I watched as good ponies die because of one little mistake, so please forgive me if I wanted the beings that started my descent into jealousy and anger destroyed. The only thing I wish I could change tonight is the fact that you were the one that did it. I would have gladly traded places. You don't mean that? Naruto could see her hooves stiffen as she turned towards him, tears falling freely from her face as she glared at him. I meant ever. Her words only stopped as he placed his hoof in her mouth, his cerulean eyes, once happy and full of life, turning to an icy stare. If you meant that, then say it to my face without crying. Come on, I dare you to try. He paused, his glare never fading as she tried to choke out any sort of word to tell the Alicorn off. You can't know why. It's because you regret what happened to them. You never wanted this to happen. You just wanted every pony to be safe, that's all. Luna, I know you're better than that. You would have killed both of them if you were in my shoes, but you would have at least apologized before doing it. Naruto's glare softened as she embraced him. The tears had stopped falling as he brushed his left hoof across her mane, his body shuddering as he inhaled her lavender scent. It was pure bliss to him. You know we do this too often. Her voice a little muffled as she pulled back from his coat, her eyes puffy as she smiled at the care he'd given her. Well, I'll try not to press your buttons next time we meet, though this does have its rewards. You know, I can think of some other things we could do as well. I kinda like this, Luna. How about we just stay and talk? I was talking about showing you what Equestria was like when Celestia and I were still young. Yeah, sure, that sounds better than what I was thinking. We could do that too just after we talk. Luna ignored the constant sputtering coming out of Naruto's mouth as she glanced, watching the scenery change once again. 10 hours later. His eyes glanced at Naruto's frame. The stallion wanted nothing but to blame him for what happened yesterday, but through it all Naruto placed his trust with him, and what happened was his fault ultimately. Scarlet eyes met, a pair of cerulean set, an unspoken agreement already exchanged by a simple nod. So for the daily coffee, can you get an extra for Trixie? Crescent's gaze hardened as the Alicorn shifted slightly under his stare. I took the couch last night, so don't attack me please. Today is not the day for this kind of horse shit. Is she alright? She didn't stay Ponyville when you left things to me, so I just assumed she left town. She wouldn't do that, not without talking to you first, but yes, she is fine, but I still think you should talk to her about what happened. I will, and thank you for taking care of her. That's what friends do for each other. The unicorn face turned to a slow smile as he turned away, the word friend replaying over and over again in his mind. He still hadn't forgave him for snooping in his personal life, but if this was the measures he'd go to make it up to him, then perhaps his first judgment about him was wrong after all. The unicorn's trip through town was thankfully quiet, his eyes already locked on Sugarcube Corner, as the few vendors setting up their stalls. The bell rang as he entered the confectionery shop, his eyes already set on the brown liquid behind the counter. The steam rising was all the scent he needed as his hooves shook in impatience. Just a minute. His eyes wandered at the treats laid out for the morning rush. Tantalizing as they were, the unicorn knew where that he'd have only one treat, as the bottomless pit known as Naruto or any of today's guests would devour any chance of him savoring another tasty bite. Crescent's train of thought stopped as a cerulean blue-coated mare stepped out from the back, her face full of surprise as he stared on at her. Oh, it's you, Crescent. I take it you're here for the usual then? The smell of fritters wafted of her, as he slowly shook his head. His mind went back to the countless treats, ultimately deciding to treat every pony. Hopefully it would be a nice enough way to lean into what exactly happened yesterday. Not this time. I'll have 4 cups of coffee, 3 apple fritters, something breakfasty with vanilla on it, and a dozen cream-filled donuts. All on the Prince's tab, right? Of course, and what is up to now? It's 98 bits and counting. I know this is rude of me asking since you made a tab with my husband, but when exactly are you going to pay us? Her eyes averted the crimson gaze as he blinked a few times in contemplation. I'll have the bits by tomorrow. I'll be done in a jiffy then. He could see the small smile gracing her lips as she walked back into the kitchen, his eye turning towards the smell of treats, his mind. A mighty big breakfast for the two of you to be eating all alone, and all those cups of coffee can't be good for you. Oh no, ma'am, we have some guests over today to talk about what happened yesterday. Speaking of that, did any pony get hurt last night? None that I can think of. Oh, that's good. It would be awful if someone got hurt. The mare walked out from the kitchen, her head performing a balancing act of all the confectionery treats he ordered. Well, the prince has to write a letter to Princess Celestia about this one, so we might be back after a while for lunch, okay? His horn blew as the assortment of breakfast items lifted into the air, getting a look of bewilderment from the mare as he slowly poured the cups of coffee. His trip back was as quiet as the trip there. No one spoke to him, and this made the small trip back all the more enjoyable. The house was almost as exactly as he left it. There was Naruto still laying lazily on the couch, but with Trixie performing some trick in the air. I can't leave any of you alone for a second, can I? His voice echoed through the house as the two sat straight as he glared at the duo. I got food, so we can eat when every pony is up. He ignored the looks on confusion as he stormed past the two, knocking on his door, it opening the slightest as he met a pair of magenta eyes. I got coffee. Naruto looked on, his eye twitching as he watched a cyan Pegasus walk past the unicorn, her rainbow mane in a mess and her wings only half stretched, a clear sign she was either tired or bored. She looked on at the rest of the occupants. His choice words were only stopped by the vanilla cupcake dangling so haphazardly in the air. Crescent taunting him for him to say something inappropriate. Damn bastard. So you were in there when we came home last night? No, we were still up, and I'm surprised you two didn't hear us. Hear what exactly? His tone became a bit sharper, unnoticed by none as he glared at the unicorn. Wait, you think me and him? No, we were just talking last night while I was. He just listened to me. The rainbow-haired mane's hooves shook in front of her in protest. She wasn't that kind of mare, and she was sure that he wasn't that kind of stallion if last night was anything to talk about. My bad then. The Alicorn sighed to himself. So what made you buy every pony treats today? Well, I thought after yesterday we deserve some sort of treat, and since the one pony I wanted to talk to is here, so thanks again, Naruto. His eyes shifted on his sister. He had only a few words to say to her, and he was sure she had just as many, if not more. He gently set the food on the table before them, all the cupcake on top, as he watched the hooves scramble for the nearest food. Fair enough, though in honesty, isn't this a little much? It's like you expect us to eat all of this. The Alicorn said dreamily as he bit into the cupcake, his magical tail daring anyone to come near him. You eat this much on a constant basis, So seeing as we had guests, I figured they would get something to eat because I know you would starve yourself for them. So what about you? I have coffee, Naruto, and that's all I need. The Alicorn deadpanned as the unicorn stated the fact without a care in the world. Naruto's eyes drifted to the clock as he devoured whatever was left of the cupcake. It was 8:30, and he was sure with Rainbow Dash here his flight training was not going to happen, and if that wasn't going to happen then he didn't have to work for the Apple family today, and with that he had a free day, if you didn't count Twilight teaching him about the advanced theories of basic magical spells. I'm going outside, Dash, you are coming with me. The blonde trotted off, not leaving the mare any chance to answer, as he dragged her off, leaving the two Lulamoons alone. And him with an angry mare that swore up and down that she'd de-wing him if he didn't let her go, which brought an internal debate of freeing her as it's the right thing to do, or just wait until this all blew over. Look, calm down, they just need some time alone. Why do they need to be alone? They haven't seen each other in 3 years. He could see the mare's mind running a mile a minute, her hoof reaching for the door as she was pulled back out of its range. You mean she's his special some pony, don't you? No, it isn't like that at all, it's personal, leave it at that. I'm not dropping it, Naruto, you brought me out here and expect me to wait when who knows what is going on between those two. The Alicorn just stared at the magenta eyes. She wouldn't drop this until he told her, and he prayed to Celestia that either of them wouldn't be mad spilling the beans. They're siblings, Dash, nothing more. Now when I let you go, do you promise not to bother either of them? She didn't need to promise, as her mind slowed down as she processed the information. If that Trixie character was his sister, she'd forgive her for embarrassing her in front of Ponyville. I promise, I can talk with Crescent later. The magical grip dropped as Rainbow Dash floated to the ground, her wings beating at a slow rhythm. Her eyes rolled as she looked down at Ponyville, her eyes settling on one gray Pegasus barreling towards them. Watch out, every pony! The Pegasus screams directed towards the two as she crashed into Naruto. Her golden eyes forced themselves to focus on the Alicorn under her. She rubbed her face across Naruto's affectionately, as she adjusted the mail bag on her right side. I told you to watch out, Naruto, didn't you hear me? I heard you, Derpy, it's just didn't want you to get hurt. You are so thoughtful, Naruto, I wish every pony was like you. I got mail for you, Naruto, it's an express delivery so it's important. The bubbly mare smiled as she picked herself off the Alicorn, her face sifting through the countless letters. Here it is, and see Express is on it. The male mare couldn't help but smile as the Alicorn delicately plucked it out of her mouth, opening it slowly. His eyes scanned the letter back and forth as he read it. Dear Naruto, I hope you are in good spirits while reading this, but I need your assistance. Let me first off apologize for the inconvenience of not receiving this by Dragon Mail, but this was the only way to keep prying eyes from reading this, especially my student who knows how she would react to something like this. Equestria may be going to war, Naruto, and you and your cousin might be the only ones that can stop this from happening. You and your guard Crescent must take the next train to Canterlot. Once you arrive, Spitfire will lead you to your next destination and tell you everything you need to know. Appropriate attire will be provided for this occasion, so be expected to talk with royalty and behave like one. Naruto, I know you and Crescent are starting to adjust to life in Ponyville, or maybe you already have, but I need you both to be on your best behavior. All of Equestria depends on this. Both Luna and I are counting on the actions of every pony involved to lead Equestria into a brighter tomorrow. I hope to hear from you or your cousin in a few days after everything is resolved. Sincerely yours, Princess Celestia. P.S. Please don't be a stranger to Canterlot. We enjoyed your visit and hope to chat with you sometime, pony to pony. Does any pony know when the next train to Canterlot is? About an hour from now, give or take a few minutes. Why, Naruto? The male mare frowned as she watched the cerulean blue eyes harden as he read the letter. Are you going to Canterlot, Naruto? Derpy, I can't tell you why, but yes, I'm going to Canterlot. No pony can know about this, Derpy. It's important we keep this one a secret. He watched the gray Pegasus nod. Dash, go tell Crescent to pack some stuff and tell him he has about 15 minutes to talk with Trixie before we have to leave. Why can't you tell him? It's because I'm sure you'll want to talk to him after he's done talking to Trixie, and I'm not sure you'll get a chance anytime soon. Fine. So Derpy, how has your day been so far? Canterlot. Her eyes shifted as she deliberately walked through the garden, her horn glowing with a red glow as her amulet jangled back and forth with each step she made. Guards around here are pretty lax. Well, it's not like they could do anything to stop me anyways. Purple eyes traced the grounds looking at countless statues. All train of thought stopped as the mayor smiled at the Alicorn halfway across the royal garden. Of course they'd hide you. Don't need Equestria's little embarrassment out in the open now, do we? The unicorn never bothered moving towards the imposing Alicorn statue. Her amulet jostled back and forth as she imagined the turmoil Equestria would be in if he ever broke free. Well, we can't waste any time here. I have places to go and people to meet. The unicorn ignored the amulet's tugging as its grip tightened around her throat. Its will to be around its master was impressive indeed. But she was its owner now, and every pony else would wait until she pulled the strings to start the first act, not watch as some innocent bystander. Naruto's eyes turned to Crescent, slowly sipping his coffee, his eyes scanning over the letter once again, probably another distraction from the constant whirlwind of chaos that seemed to surround Naruto. So Equestria is going to war then? Crescent's voice rang through the empty train. Naruto bought every ticket. If Celestia trusted him with something this important, then he was going to take every measure to ensure he wouldn't betray that trust, even if it meant spending all the gold she so graciously given him. No, we won't. Me and my cousin will work out some sort of deal. You say it like bartering a deal with whoever is going to be easy? It has to work. I don't want what happened last night to happen again when I could have done something to stop it. The Alicorn choked as he turned his attention towards the window, finding the passing scenery then the empty train cart they were in. I'm going to the next cart to practice something. I'll see you in a bit. The sound of hoof steps echoed through the train car as the door finally shut. Practice? How is he going to practice on a train? The Alicorn sighed as he looked down at the scenery. The minutes passed by like it was nothing, and the beauty of the land changed constantly from towering mountains in the background with the occasional imposing shadow on the grassy plains. It was a sight he wished every pony he could see. His enjoyment slowly faded as the train door opened, the conductor walking towards him. He was a unicorn from the looks of things. He had a grizzled coat covered in splotches of black and brown, probably from working from the engine all day. His mane a fading gray, and finally bright green eyes that just rubbed him out as they stared on at him. So, you don't need to be at the controls to do this thing. He got a short nod as the Alicorn looked away from him and back at the passing scenery. You know, you can talk, right? It isn't like I'm going to punish you for saying something stupid. Scrawl! What was that? I couldn't quite hear you correctly. His eyes following the few clouds over the vast plains as a Pegasus destroyed a cloud. Scrawl! What the hell is wrong with Guy? Can't he say anything English? His head turned lazily back to the conductor, only for it to be something entirely different. What in the name of Celestia are you? His eyes scanned this thing, and from the few seconds he stared at it, he came to one possible conclusion: it wasn't equestrian. Its body was shaped like any pony he'd ever seen, but the similarities stopped there. Its body held what looked like insect wings as they unfolded and flapped a steady beat. Its legs had countless holes in them as he looked at each one of them. Its head had a horn protruding from the forehead, with fangs coming from its jaws, and even after all that being said, it still wasn't as creepy as the big blue eyes with no pupils it had. He moved his hoofs slowly, and the creature repeated the process, mimicking him. What in the name of Celestia are you? It didn't seem hostile yet, which was a first in his books. Scrawl! Its mouth moved slowly as a dark blue magic covered its body. Before he stood looking at an exact copy of himself, right down to his wings and mane style. So you can change into other ponies? That's pretty cool. So can you talk, or is Scrawl all you can say? He watched it nod, changing back to what seemed to be its original form. I'll call it Changey for now, though I guess I need to tell Crescent about this thing. The blonde watched it sniff the air, its jaw opening slightly as a black tongue poked through, tasting the air. Even with the oddity of this train conductor, his mind went back to the letter crumbled on the ground. And then back at the creature. Could it have something to do with the threat looming to Equestria, or did he not know the land like he thought? Scrawl! Its voice rang out as it turned towards the train cars, and another one of those oddities walked through. Scrawl! Yes, so there wasn't any difference between the two beings whatsoever besides the dried red on its front fangs, and as quick as it walked in, it fell with what seemed to be a brick of cards smashed into the back of its head, and standing over the body was a glaring unicorn and floating cards behind him. So you found one too? Yeah, God Celestia, they are ugly. Naruto's eyes settled on the downed creature. The occasional twitch was all Naruto needed to know it was alive. So why the violence? I found the conductor in one of the carts. I was training in on the ground. Oh, that doesn't sound too bad. He was covered in bite marks. So some pony else could have done it. That thing tried to bite me, and almost succeeded. Well, Changey hasn't done anything hostile. For now, that is. The Alicorn could see the restrained look on the unicorn's face as the cards taunted Changey to try something. The threat of violence lingered in the air as the train ride took a more serious turn. The train began to stop. Crescent's cards finally going back to his card pouch as the two Equestria citizens began to walk away, the two changelings slowly trailing them, their body already transformed to a pair of Pegasuses slowly following the two. Naruto was sure if Crescent wasn't under orders to be on his best behavior that the duo following them would have been left back on the train along with the conductor, but full of more holes than they originally had. So any idea who Spitfire is? You are kidding, right? No, not really. Celestia, you are so stupid sometimes, Naruto. Be quiet and tell me who she is already. Spitfire is a Wonderbolt, and probably the best Wonderbolt that has ever lived. The blonde Alicorn blinked. No, I think Commander Hurricane was the best, but that might because she started the Wonderbolts, and thanks to her I have this job in the first place. Spitfire said as she poked her head in between the two talking to stallions talking to each other. Naruto's eyes traced the new intruder to the conversation, his eyes fixated on the light golden coat with a what was stylized phoenix on her flank. She had a bright pair of orange eyes and her hair was a mixture of orange and amber colors that hung loosely over her right eye. Oh, let me introduce myself to you, Prince Naruto. I am Spitfire, captain of the Wonderbolts. The composure Naruto held faded as she giggled at the gawking unicorn to her left. Well, since the Alicorn is obviously Prince Naruto, you must be his bodyguard, Crescent Lulamoon. You both look younger than I imagined. Ultimately ruining the moment for Unicorn as he looked back at the two following them. So Spitfire, what's going on? Naruto voicing his opinion as the two changelings inched closer. I'll tell you all on the train ride. Yes, speaking of trains, we should get on our train and wait things out. What did you two do? The Pegasus looked between the two. It hadn't even been an hour with the both of them, and something already happened. Don't look at us. It's not our fault, those things did it, not us. Just get on the train and you can explain everything to me. Naruto could see the irritation grow in Spitfire's eyes as she led them on the train, all four following her as she turned towards them, her scowl growing deeper. Wait, why are those two Pegasus with us? Just take us where we are going and we'll explain everything. Her orange eyes hardened on the Alicorn. A few seconds passed wondering if they was ever going to lynch like the two behind him. You don't scare too easily, do you, Naruto? The Pegasus sighed as she entered the private cart. Now start talking. Why do we have these two in our cart? Crescent shut the cart's door behind them as his cards slammed into the heads of each changeling, getting them both to revert back to their original form under the lingering threat of violence and possible death. See why we didn't bring it up. We don't have a clue on what they are and if we should leave them alone or not. How did you find these creatures? They found us, or Changey found me, and Bitey tried to bite Crescent. Did he get bitten? Of course it didn't bite me. Has it tried to bite you since then? No, I smashed its head with a brick made of cards. Violence seems to keep them in line at least. The unicorn's eyes trained on the two as they looked around the train cart nervously. So tell us, what are these things? They're called changelings, and they must have been sent to watch over you, Prince, in case you're attacked. So why'd they attack the conductor and Crescent? Naruto felt the train pull as it began to move. Well, these changelings feed off love and affection, so you must have had some lingering feeling or thoughts of a certain some pony. That makes sense. Crescent probably hugged it out with his sister before we left. That sounds about right then. Any sort of affection would trigger an attack by them. Anyways, back at the subject at hand, Naruto, remember every word I just, because this is what we are going to war against. The changeling want more land to increase their hive size, and to do that they want to invade Los Pegasus along with someone for them to drain of all their love. The demands are unreasonable, so Princess Celestia has sent Princess Miyamori Cadenza and you Prince Naruto to barter and make manageable terms, or we will have a small invasion on our hands. Do you have any questions? I have 2 Spitfire? Go ahead, Crescent. The letter said there were outfits going to be provided. Where are they? Oh, they are in the storage cart. We'll unseal them tomorrow when we're near Los Pegasus. Now your next question. If we don't succeed, we're not going to come back, are we? You catch on quick, don't you? Yeah, we are going into the proverbial dragon's den on this one. Naruto didn't bother listening to Spitfire after she told them the gist of things. Anything involving detail and planning wasn't up his alley to begin with. He'd let the two discuss what they would do. He wouldn't fail, not again. His cerulean eyes glanced at the changeling as they talked among each other, wondering what the leader of such weird-looking creatures looked like. The hive. Princess Chrysalis was bored. Extremely bored as she watched her subjects fight for her father's amusement. The 2 changelings clawed at each, exchanging cuts made by their horns. Green blood flowed freely down each of their bodies. Miss Cadenza cringed as the splatter of green blood reached covered her hooves, shining armor, and Soren sighed to themselves at the pointless act of violence. Isn't this a little barbaric for our guest's father? Perhaps a game of wits would appeal to them instead of this? The changeling princess stared on at the dark shadows as her father laughed aloud. Oh, sweet child of mine, your wisdom is far better suited to the laps of luxury. Let me shows these equestrians a true changeling experience, isn't that right, boys? His voice echoed through the main chamber, as the changeling responded in kind with their hooves stomping on the ground. See, they don't mind the violence, they enjoy it. She rolled her eyes at her bigot of a father, laughed as one of the changeling's finer warriors stood over the corpse of its opponent. That's because most changelings are mindless idiots. Your words wound them deeply, daughter, can't you see by their disheveled expression? My apologies then, I'll be more respectful to their feelings. Her attention turned towards the guests, wondering why they hadn't made any sort of appeal to her father. Miss Cadenza, may I ask why you haven't tried to making some sort of agreement now? Purple eyes focused on her frame as she looked on at her interest. Oh, Princess Chrysalis, all of our party has yet to arrive tomorrow. I imagine will be plenty long as Prince Naruto, my cousin, will arrive, and hopefully your father will agree some better terms than the ones he has already laid on the table. My deepest apologies, he's a bit. I can tell, and it is quite all right. I've experienced this plenty of times. May I make a personal inquiry, Miss Cadenza? As long as it's not thing derogatory, you may. Why do I smell your guard shining armor on you, and ones of love and compassion at that? And what makes you say that? Us changeling have an acute sense of smell about the feeling of others, especially love. You can smell feelings? Yes, and you should be mighty lucky that we were there when we arrived, or a war could have possibly broke out sooner than anticipated. I see, then I will keep that in mind, Miss Chrysalis. Is there anything else you would like to ask? What is he like, Prince Naruto, that is? Oh, I wouldn't know, but if my aunt's descriptions are true, then he's a kind and gentle soul that wants the best for everyone he meets. I see, I can't wait to meet him then. Back in Canterlot. The proud mare smirked as she walked towards the guard, her horn glowing a bright red as it enveloped his head. Miss, you are no. The dull thud of the guard's body hitting the ground echoed through the prison chambers, his eyes blinking rapidly and saliva forming at the base of his mouth. The mare slowly stepped over his brain-dead body, glancing at the estranged prisoners begging for freedom. Her purple eyes scanning between the grubby hooves, noticing the one she was looking for wasn't present, her amulet glowing lightly at the thought of this inconvenience. Settle down, we'll find him. After all, they won't kill him, and we still have plenty of time before he awakens. The amulet shook violently at the mare's lazy attempt at rescuing a possible recruit to the cause. Be patient, it's been 1,000 years, a couple of days longer will not mean a thing. The silent response was all she needed as she began her trot back out of the Canterlot prison. Make special, Crescent Field Day of Emotions. The 2 siblings stared at each other, waiting for other to speak up. Trixie was the first to break the ice as she placed her donut down. I'm sorry for what I did all those years ago. I said such horrible things to you and never gave you a chance to explain your decision. Instead, I pinned my blame of loneliness on you. The mare finally stated as her eyes shut, waiting for him to lash at her. I don't hate you for what you said or did back then. At that time, even if it was hurtful, you were right. What I hated is what you became, Trixie. Dad died being a show pony, and here you are traveling around Equestria just like he did. The only difference was that you probably embarrassed tons of ponies along the way. But I could care less about that as long as you save. The unicorn sighed out as he watched tears travel down her eyes as she cried silently to herself. Trixie, you're my little sister. You'll always be that filly that performed her very first firework on Mom's mane to me. He couldn't stop the few tears traveling down his face seeing her in such a disheveled state. I miss you, kiddo. Trixie sniffled as she listened to him, her head feeling the occasional teardrop hit her head. Her brother was crying for her, something she had seen him do only a rare occasion. You destroyed my clones. She could hear him sniffle as he choked out a reply. Well, you were embarrassing my boss, so I thought I'd direct the attention towards something else. You just happened to be the best way to do it. Her sobs stopped as she returned the hug, his hoof ruffling her hair as they stayed like that for a few moments. I don't know what to do now that my stage has been destroyed. I mean, at first my shows were a means to an end, get enough to feed me. But it became so much more after my second performance. The bits just seemed to keep coming, until they got tired of watching the show, and with that I just left. Crescent, that stage was my life. What do I do without it? She pulled away as crimson eyes stared at her in deep thought, trying to think of some way to keep her here. You could stay here, Trixie. I know this place isn't much, in fact it's not even, but that idiot prince would definitely spare a room for you to stay, I know it. His voice was a silent whisper as she looked at him in contemplation. I know the appeal of staying in one place would be dull compared to traveling across Equestria doing countless shows, but you'd have friends and family here. The Mars smiled at her brother's gesture. It was kinda funny seeing him act like this. I'd love to, honestly, Crescent. You seem to have changed and Naruto seems very friendly, but past that I can't think of any pony that would look at me, let alone be my friend. The mare watched as his eyes dropped back into that all but familiar contemplating look. She hugged the stallion again, noticing his hooves wrap around her. This time he let go, as the cyan Pegasus entered the house. Crescent, Naruto wants to see you when you're done talking with Trixie. The unicorn nodded as he smiled at the Pegasus. See, another thing, I'd be freeloading while Naruto and you would be doing all the work. You could do something to help out the community. I'm sure you could think of something. I appreciate the offer, but... No buts, you gave me an option back then, so I want you to have one as well. I have 300 bits in my closet. You can do anything with you want with it, it's all up to you. After I am done helping Naruto, I'll know your answer. The unicorn left in silence as the mare smiled at his trotting form leaving the house. Before the train ride. Crescent stood before the train watching Naruto be reckless with his bit spending, buying the last of the train's tickets, the card pouch strapped to his hind legs. So you're leaving, huh? Well, I would have expected as much considering Naruto asked about the next train to Canterlot, so I wanted to catch you before you went off on some random adventure. He didn't bother looking back at the cyan Pegasus behind him, only shaking his head as she stood still. It's kind of late to talk, isn't it, Dash? Yeah, but it's super short, so please let me say this. I'm not going to stop you, but when I get on the conversation ends, okay? That's fine, it shouldn't be that long anyways. I wanted to say thank you for yesterday. You saved me from that Ursa and then comforted me about what almost happened, and stayed up all night talking with me. Dash, it's okay, I understand. The unicorn turned towards the Pegasus as he felt her lips press against his. The kiss was short, but still a lasting impression all the same. That's for yesterday, and good luck, come home soon. The unicorn nodded dumbly as he watched Dash fly off. The taste of mangoes and cotton candy covered his lips, his senses only returning when Naruto yelled in his ear. It's time to go! The Alicorn clueless to what just transpired between the two. The next day. Trixie stared on at the bag of gold placed in front of her. She had left the house since she was given this ultimatum. Yesterday's conversation still clear as day to her, and Naruto saving her life was another contributing factor to this internal debate. That was clever of him, giving me the option to stay or run away, like he did so long ago. A little vindictive though. She had counted the bits, not believing her eyes as she poured it on the table, and did it one at a time. 376 bits laid in that bag, and he didn't care what she did with it. Trixie could go to Canterlot, like Trixie always dreamed of, and do just one show to dazzle the crowd. This would be more than enough to do it, to carry out Trixie's dream. The thought of such a stage performance rang through the mare's head as she looked next to the bag of bits, 2 pictures solely next to it, a reminder of what she could have if she stayed. The first was a picture of the Alicorn giving a beaming smile with a bunch of fillies as they made funny faces towards the camera. She would admit that carefree charm of his, and that smile made her heart tingle each time she saw it. Even in the belly of the beast he gave that small smirk, letting her know everything would be okay. Trixie couldn't do that to the prince though. He sacrificed so much for Trixie and didn't ask for a thing in return. Her eyes turned to the other picture, the only thing she rummaged besides her clothing from wrecked card, a picture of her life before her father had died. She looked at the smiling family photo of her. It wasn't of a family pretending to be happy for a stupid photo, it was genuine happiness. What would you do, Dad? I can't make up my mind. The coins rattled as the bag tipped over, knocking the duo of pictures down. Her eyes turned back towards the bag and its spilled contents, Trixie's body slowly getting up from her seat. A pink glowing hue surrounded the precious bit as the jangle of coins echoed in the house. Please don't let me be wrong about this. The mare sighed as she walked out with the bag of bits, her mind made up finally. Los Pegasus, 10 in the morning. Crescent blinked as they got off the train. He looked to his left and right as the 2 flyers argued back and forth about the lack of proper and formal attire would show badly upon their standing of this delicate talk. Prince, be reasonable. We'd be better off with some clothes on from the city than to arrive not dressed at all. Spitfire, we can't waste time with stupid things like clothes. We have to get there now. A quick stop then? No stops. I want to make this meeting the first and last thing we do today. But PRI. Crescent watched as the Pegasus turned away, her wings stretching out over her body as Naruto looked down at her, both realizing something strange about the Pegasus' actions. So can I propose something then? His voice cutting through the tension as all 4 glanced at him. Why don't we split up? Spitfire, Bitey and I go find some clothing, and Changey and you go to the hive. Everybody wins and we can nip both problems in the bud. If Princess Cadenza and I can talk them out of war, then does it matter if we're wearing something? The unicorn could see the conviction in his eyes as he said the word war. He truly meant to end this little debacle today. Then we should get clothes anyway. If we avert war, then you'll need something to look nice for the picture to document this in the history books. What are you getting at, Crescent? Give us 20 minutes to get supplies for our stay at the Changeling's home. While you can leave now and get a head start, I'm sure Changey wants to get home as much as every pony else here. His words were slick as the Pegasus nodded next to him. It's not like we won't be right behind you, Naruto. We just need about 20 minutes and we will be done. Fine, take your time. You'll just miss my awesome skills are at negotiating. No pony said anything as the Alicorn turned away, his hooves kicking up dirt, as Changey led the way. Thanks for that. I'm sure we can find some appropriate clothes easily for every pony here. Do you wear a medium or large shirt? Just get Naruto a bow tie and you some normal clothes. I'll find me a t-shirt or something to wear that's appropriate. The clock's ticking and we can't be late for this. The Pegasus nodded as she flew off, his eyes scanning the. About 45 minutes later, Naruto stopped in the desert as he glanced at the changeling, its legs still moving from the beating heat, his aching hooves finally giving out from under him to the ground. Tired, skipping meals on the train ride wasn't as good an idea as he originally thought. This was a terrible idea Crescent came up with. That horse's ass probably knew what was going to happen from the beginning and just appealed to the Pegasus's clothing crisis, so they'd pick him up and taunt him a little. Who knew some pony so strict would have a problem with just being in her coat? His eyes drifted back towards Changey's moving form going farther into the desert. Changey, let's just rest for a few seconds, okay? His mouth felt dry as he rested his head against the hot ground, the sounds of Changey yelling from wherever he was. Scraw, scraw, scraw! His eyes glancing upwards, the changeling walked towards the blonde, screeching out another call, his eyes swimming, his head dropping to the ground, eyes closed. The ground shook as the changeling's hooves slammed into the ground near the blonde's head, plumes of dust rising all around him, Changey nudging the equestrian royalty some more. Scrawl! Its blue pupilless eyes looked off into the desert, looking for the one responsible for the call. A flash of brilliant green happened in the distance as a lone figure walked towards the two, his neck craned as he slowly bowed to the figure. Is this him? Changey's head nodded at the imposing figure as she walked up to him. You did good. I promise you'll be greatly rewarded for this service, but where's the one I sent you with you? SCR scrawl. I see, so he's with the bodyguards buying some clothes. I guess he is allowed some freedom then. Let's get him up and back to the hive before father wakes. Her eyes turned towards the changeling, its eyes following the blonde's chest moving up and down. Her eyes softened as she could feel the warmth of his emotions exuding from him even in his sleep. Her horns slowly lowered to his. The briefest touch of a brilliant green aura rose the sleeping Alicorn from his slumber. Hello, Prince Naruto. It's a pleasure to finally put a face with the name. His eyes snapped open, staring at the figures around him, one Changey and the other being somewhere behind him. Who are you? Where am I? His voice croaked out as he laid on the ground, ignoring the few kicks to his backside. My name is Princess Chrysalis, and you are a mile or two past the equestrian border, about 6 miles away from Los Pegasus if I'm not mistaken. Her harlequin eyes traced over his body. Her nose crinkled at the smell of despair wafting off of him. So you're a princess like Luna and Celestia, that's good. I'm a princess, yes, just not like the others. The Alicorn slowly pushed himself off the ground, with a renewed strength he didn't have just moments ago. Cerulean eyes finally locked on to the one he was talking to and slowly understood what she said. Who are you? Let me introduce myself again. My name is Chrysalis, Princess of the Changelings. She expected fear to dance through his eyes and the detestable smell of hate to linger off of his body, as she stood in front of him. Instead, the sweet smell of happiness exuded from him instead, as though she rekindled some lost spirit within him. He couldn't help but smile as he looked at Princess Chrysalis. She was a very happy change to what he imagined changeling royalty to be like. She had longer legs with a few more holes. Her body was a dark coat with a green back. If the Alicorn was to hazard a guess, they stored a pair of wings similar to Changey. Long dark cerulean hair parted by the oddly shaped horn in the center of her forehead. On the small occasion it looked as though someone punched a hole in her hair. Her harlequin eyes stared on at him in amusement, and finally if he gazed up he seemed to find a small crown resting on top of her head. You aren't messing with me, are you? 'Cause I thought all changelings looked like that. I assure you I'm the real deal, but I'm not the you should gawk at. My father is the one that wants war. She followed his movements as he stretched his wings out, wondering if he was going to try anything against her. What is your take on the war? War is something no pony or changeling wants, and I'm going to find a way to stop it. Would you do anything to stop it, Naruto? No, anything means underhanded tactics. It isn't a real peace then. If Princess Cadence and I are going to do this, then I want it done right. She imagined the Alicorn would say something like that, the words etched with deceit as he smiled at her with a handsome face. She was only half correct in that assumption. The words were full of hope as she smelled the air as he talked. Every word he uttered gave off the smell of hope. He honestly believed in every word he said. You are very odd, Prince Naruto. You speak with conviction and belief, even if you look like a bumbling idiot. I stumble around, but I'll make it happen, Chrysalis, just you watch. I'm sorry if it's hard to believe you. I did find you laying face down in the dirt not a few moments ago. That was different. I was hungry and had no strength. No pony can stop me from helping out the changelings and Equestria now. The Alicorn grinned as he practically could feel the energy flow through his hooves. He hadn't felt this amazing ever. Chrysalis looked on at the Alicorn. It was alarming to say the least. Yes, he did give him the slightest fraction of magic to wake him up, and enough to get to the hive. Never did she imagine that this little boost of adrenaline could bring so much energy to him. Yet he was practically bouncing off his hooves, ready to run a marathon. Ready to leave, Prince Naruto? She got a quick nod from him as she wondered how he felt teleportation. Well, it didn't matter, he was probably used to this type of thing anyways by now. The hive. Princess Cadence glanced at the changeling and 2 royal guards in front of her. Shining Armor was consulting with Soren about something as she wanted to deal this matter personally. The 3 appearing out of nowhere and startling the changelings. This wasn't a problem. Cadence knew about how adept magic users could use teleportation spells, Most unicorns familiar with this didn't use it much as it tends to come with a hefty risk. If you were to teleport into something, your life would end. That was not the problem here. That she was staring at one Pegasus and one Unicron was indeed the problem. Where was Naruto at? Can you please run that by me again? She heard them clearly the first time. She just wanted to hammer in the fact that had royally fucked up, and unless some divine miracle happens, Equestria was going to war. Do you have any idea where he? A brilliant green flash of light stopped any train of those as her divine miracle just occurred with the Alicorn looking on at the rock formation the changelings called home. Teleporting was a weird feeling. You were at point A 1 second and then poof, you're in point B, and that is what deeply confused the Alicorn more than anything. But all those thoughts came to a screeching halt as his eyes met up with a pink-coated Alicorn. Her mane was a mixture of pale gold, a dark violet, and a moderate rose colors. The Alicorn's purple eyes holding back a fury that Naruto was sure one of them present had caused. I'm sorry I'm late, Cadence, but I kinda got lost. It's fine, I'm just glad that you are alright, Naruto. The Alicorn looked away, her composure coming back to her, silently thanking Celestia for the miracle of some pony finding him. Well, now that Everpony is here, we have much to do and discuss, Naruto, before we can start talking with the king of the changelings. She watched as the small grin he had plastered on his face became hardened at the thought of war loomed clearly in the air. Come on, there's no time to goof around, when we still time to prepare. Prepare for what? She stopped mid-track. He was already awake and knew that every pony was here. I mean, it's nice to see you equestrians out here talking and scheming amongst each other is quite amusing. But may I remind you all what you are doing, and that is wasting my time. I am a changeling of action, your words and plans will not persuade me at all. Equestrians know this, the both of you. 1 week is all you have to sway me, or nothing will stop King Metamor and my changeling army from invading your land. Do you understand? Cadence didn't bother turning around. It wouldn't have mattered confronting this bigot on his court. The Alicorn looked down at his true obstacle to peace, and he wasn't like anything that he had expected. The king was the same size and height of Chrysalis herself, but that's where the similarities ended. His coat was a dark brown compared to the black he had expected. The king smirked as he sniffed the air, his sapphire eyes grinning at the emotions he was holding back. The mangled horn he also expected was perfectly straight, until it reached the tip as it split apart into 2 segments. Asterisk. There was no mane to hide on top of his scalp, his wings a vibrant see-through orange as he flapped them once to gather any attention that wasn't directed towards him already. Do you have something to say, equestrian, or perhaps I can smell the anger emanating off your body? It's quite funny compared to the Miss Cadenza's irritated look. Naruto wanted nothing more than to beat the living crap out of this guy, but it wouldn't have solved a thing. Can you keep your face like that the whole time we talk? Why should I do something so trivial? Because I want a Crescent to keep track of how long it took before I make a deal to stop this war. He didn't need to look at every pony else to know what he'd just done. His cerulean eyes stared on at his target. Know his goal, Cadence, and him was going to stop this war, and all that stood in there was him. This was again different than Chrysalis had expected. She honestly believed that bravado the Alicorn held in the desert would disappear as he tried to politely sway her father into more reasonable demands. But this Alicorn just told him off, this and this just screamed. Diplomatic nightmare, that's what this was to Princess Cadence at least, but she couldn't find fault with her cousin. This king deserved whatever more than that little jab, but that would be enough, and with 1 week they couldn't afford any more blows to his ego. She expected Shining Armor to say something crass, taught he changeling. She expected to tread through this water at some point, but to do so vehemently, this was either a genius move on her cousin's part, or he just started this war, and with how the king of the changelings held himself, this was going to be a nightmare. We will see, Prince. Until then, welcome to our home. Somewhere else so mysterious. It sniffed the air. Yes, there was no mistaking it. She used her magic, and so close to him as well. The creature walked through the catacombs. Its occasional glance at a pile of bones did nothing but infuriate him. How long had it been since that morsel escaped from this tomb? 20 years, that's how long he had waited to plunge his fangs into her throat and suck the life force out of her. 20 years of searching day and night for his prey, only for it to appear again out of the blue. No, it expected this for a while now. The changelings were such an insignificant race compared to itself. Master Discord did make him after all. The Hive 3 days later, the last minutes of the negotiations. We don't intend to die of starvation, Princess Cadence, or did you forget that we will not forage for food in the Badlands? The pink Alicorn nodded respectfully, her eardrums beating at the constant screeching of the changeling's watchers. It's a matter of necessity. You have land and food. We wanted those things. Her eyes turned toward the changeling crowd as all around her every crevice and hole that she could see was blocked off by a group of changelings. It was odd being under the watchful of every changeling and proposing idea after idea. The unanimous scraws of disapproval only disheveled the group of equestrians before. Does your idea of peaceful coexistence still exist, Prince Naruto? Or have the cries of my people changed your beliefs so easily? Cadence watched on as the Alicorn walked backwards. She could tell he was straining to bark out something. The king had deliberately attacked him and his plan from the start. I guess you still are going to grovel in the dirt, thinking of something. May I say something, Your Highness? Everything stopped as White Stallion walked forward, his light cerulean eyes scanning the crowd as they chatted among each other. His mane and tail a mixture of phthalo, cerulean and sapphire blue as he stopped right beside his loving mare friend. The changelings lifted. It is an open floor. I just didn't expect someone of your class to say something. The king smiled as he saw the flash of hatred in each equestrian's eyes. Oh, he knew politics real well. Was he good at it? No, but that's why it was an open floor with Chrysalis here. Anything that he couldn't comprehend she was sure to pick up on. His eyes averted to his loving daughter, following her gaze back to that abominable prince as he stared back at the both of them. Why won't any of the changelings go and forage for food in the Badlands? Celestia stated you used to live quite far into the Badlands and held good relations with Equestria while prospering. It was an immediate reaction from the changelings. Their scraws of disapproval were higher and louder than any of their earlier times. That is enough of that. His voice echoed over the chamber, his cerulean eyes glaring at the king, wanting an answer so he could go home. I'll ask the same question to you then, commoner. Why did you equestrians settle in Equestria? Its simple food became scarce and the opposition grew larger, so we retreated further towards the Badlands border to Equestria. Then why not seek help? We would be gladly to assist you in reclaiming your land and lending you some food. We will not stoop ourselves to grovel to Celestia or any equestrian's feet to save my kingdom. The room remained silent as the king's proud declaration shook each of the guests' resolve, as it finally made sense of what was really starting to go on. His wings flapped as he flew through the air, glaring at each equestrian he could see. This trash, no filth dared offer to help him when his nation was doing fine. He'd kill them all, and he would make sure that White Stallion would be the first to go. It was over. Princess Cadence knew it. His outburst was just the thing she expected as they pushed their luck so far. Her cold friend's questioning was just and spot on. It was just directed at the wrong person. If it was perhaps Princess Chrysalis, they'd have that opening they needed. Her cousin had already left Spitfire and Soren trailing behind him. So that went rather well. I wonder what's tomorrow's going to be like. She glanced at his assigned bodyguard, looking straight without a care in the world. Did he actually know something about Naruto's appeals? Do you know something that we don't? Not in the slightest, princess. Your guess is as good as mine. She looked at him once more, trying to see if there was any trace of lying in his eyes. Nothing, still just that stare at the throne. Somewhere else, still kinda mysterious. It licked its fangs in anticipation. It had been 2 days of searching, but he had finally found it. Chrysalis, my dear, you'll be here soon. First a bite, and then you'll be mine. The catacombs echoed with movement, his gaze turning towards the cowering larva in the corner. It was barely 2 years old, and still the first snack it had in ages. You are scared, aren't you? He could see the small creature slowly nod as it waited for its reaction. You should be, and I'll show you why. The fangs dripped with venom as it plunged into the child's neck, the cries echoing out, its fangs leaving the poor child's side as green blood coated his teeth. Yes, Chrysalis, you and the world shall see the beauty of Discord's pet and all that mocked my beauty. An hour after the negotiation, Naruto's retreat outside the hive had become a normal occurrence, as the blonde would destroy some unsuspecting land around the changeling's home as a way to relieve stress, under the guise of learning the magic bolt. Today, however, was much different. There were no streams of unintelligible grunts coming from the Alicorn. Instead, it was a lax pace, confusing cadence to no end. Prince Naruto, we need to think of a new plan. So far all we have done is infuriate him, and every chance we could possibly get to extend the olive branch has been knocked out of our hooves." The pink Alicorn looked down at the blonde deep in concentration. His horn glowed a crimson glow as he glared at a random rock. He could feel his horn twitch. A crimson aura shot out a bolt of magic like a missile, the Alicorn thrown backwards to the ground as chunks of rocks and dirt scattered everywhere. A growl of frustration coming from Naruto as he destroyed Anto her boulder so easily. "Are you even listening to me?" Her tone one of irritation as the Alicorn picked himself off the ground, his horn twitching with pulses of magic as it finally settled down. "Of course I'm listening to you, cousin, but we can't really change anything. King Metamor isn't going to change his mind, so we need to change it for him." His eyes turned towards the unicorn, making various figures out of cards, goggles securely covering his eyes from the sandy terrain. "Hey, how was that one? I think this shot was smaller." "If the rock is still in one piece, then you are doing it right. Until then, we'll just call that a magical hiccup." She watched as the Alicorn walk around, most likely searching for another rock to shoot at. "Can you listen to me, please? We need to talk to Chrysalis. If we can appeal to her, maybe then we can make some ground and finally talk some reason into her father." "I know that. I'm going to talk to Chrysalis tonight about what Shining Armor brought up." The blonde looked on for his next target. Hopefully this time he wouldn't destroy his target in one blast. "When do you have the time to talk to Chrysalis?" "After dinner, around midnight, and whenever she sends Changey to look for me." "Do you think I can perhaps join? Maybe we can think of something together to change her father's mind." The pink Alicorn nodded to herself. Maybe this was their chance to finally figure something out. "I don't know. It isn't you, but we just talk nothing really important. She's just curious about life in Equestria, or anything in general." "Why does she want to know about that?" Cadence glanced at Shining Armor, wondering if he could help persuade the blonde to let her come with. "I think she's had a sheltered life, so she's just curious. But you can tag along. Maybe you have some interesting stories to tell her. I kind of ran out of mine." Cadence blinked at how calm he was. Up until 3 hours ago it would take the slightest mention of a changeling to get him rattled. Now it didn't even seem to bother him. He had to know something, she was sure of it. "Yeah, I guess. Naruto, why aren't you rattled anymore? Yesterday the only times I didn't see you angry was when you were eating and sleeping. Every other time it looked like you were going to impale the next thing you saw." "Oh, we finally did something, that's all. Did you see how angry King Metamor got when we asked about what Shining Armor said? That has to mean we did something right, and if we just press on we should get an answer from him, a truthful one." The Alicorn stood across a rock the same size as him, his horn glowing in preparation for another attack to be shot off. "Antagonizing him tomorrow is just going to make the changelings go to war sooner. We are trying to avert a war, not start it. I'm aiming for the same thing. But if we can help them, then isn't that better? The king said that the changelings were driven out of their home by something, so if we can find out what it is, maybe they'll just go back home." "That is a very stupid plan, Naruto. Don't you forget that he told every pony that they left for food as well." "It's still something I want to ask him, even if it's stupid." "You might want to move, Cadence. The debris hurts if you're not used to it by now." The bolt shot off slimmer than his earlier attempts. It slammed into the rock, punching a clean hole through it. Naruto grinned at his progress. It had been 3 days since the unicorn opted to teach him something to make up for Twilight's absence. "See, I told you I could do it." "Yeah, now do it again." That night at the hive, Harlequin eyes looked around slowly as her hooves slowly touched the rock ground, something the princess of the changeling was still getting used to by now. The nightly visits were becoming something special in her eyes. She slowly crept towards the window, her eyes studying the ground as each step she made sounded out through the silent room. "Just a few more, and I'm home free." Her thoughts running wild as her first hoof shined in the moonlight. 3 more steps, and she'd be home free. "Princess, are you up?" Naruto whispered softly as she peeked through the window, her eyes greeted by a sight of not one but 2 alicorns in midair. The smell of anxiety wafted off the both of them. She slowly retracted her head, not wanting to know what the 2 had concocted. "Wait, don't go, please, Cadence wants to talk, and she came up with this awesome idea." The changeling's eyes twitched. Of course the pink alicorn wanted to talk. It wasn't like she was wanted to actively socialize with her, but if the blonde wanted her to hear the princess out, she would. Go ahead before I change my mind. I heard that you wanted to leave the Badlands, is that correct? Harlequin eyes twinkled at the thought of visiting Equestria, the glitz, the glamour of everything only few changelings ever told her about, a dream she had for the longest time now. I could teleport us to Los Pegasus for a brief while, that is. The thought lingered, was it so simple? Could she really teleport the three of them to the city and back? I'll do it, I just want to ask some questions tomorrow, if that isn't much trouble? Chrysalis's eyes hardened, she knew there had to have been a catch, and she could take a good guess at what those questions were about. You want to ask me about my father, don't you? Yes, I just want something we can use to avert this war. Can you teleport us that far? None of my books have told me that no pony can teleport that far. Oh yeah, I could teleport to Canterlot if I need to all by myself. Okay, but you have to promise me you'll teleport me the day you ask my father those questions. As long as what you give me works, then yes, I'll teleport to Los Pegasus for sure. Deal. Her hoofs slowly reached out, the Alicorn taking it with such ease, a simple deal between princesses. Let's get to the top of you home, it should be easier for me to teleport us from there. The changeling princess nodded in agreement as her wings buzzed slowly, carrying her out the window. Somewhere mysterious summed during the talk. Its eyes followed the moon settling over the Badlands, the scent of her decorating the wind. She's being careless, you naughty little princess, maybe a nibble a day would teach you. It was sooner than it had initially expected, but without discords, well, who cared when it got to devour its prey? Tonight she dies, and then the changelings one by one. No, not Chrysalis, he has to die first, Metamor curse him for killing sister, Webeto Wall be avenged, I'll stake my fangs on it. The creature yelled into the night as its 8 legs pushed itself free, formed the tunnel to those catacombs, intent on destroying its natural food source. Miles seemed to only be minutes as the spider leapt to the ground, each jump seemed to be only. At the hive. Metamor stared at the moon, his rage hadn't even begun to settle as the thought of retreating could even occur to him. We can't retreat, all we must do is press forward and wait, then we strike. She left again to talk with the Alicorn. He'd known from the very beginning that she was speaking to him. The first night it was just her asking him questions about the outside in general. He expected the Alicorn to ask for something in return. He asked for nothing, telling her in detail the looks of Equestria's capital, Canterlot. Her fascination with the outside world was justified. He knew it more than any changeling, but he couldn't give her that, not with what he knew. At least the brat is good for something. I'll spare him when the invasion happens. Chrysalis could use some more intelligent friends. The smell was good, tonight's feeling were brimming in the air as happiness lingered, and then he felt the disappearance of the happiness, Chrysalis's nightly chats, the anticipation of what the blonde wanted to say, the fear of war wafting off, the everything gone in an instant. His hooves couldn't gallop fast enough as he exited the hive. Metamor's sapphire eyes stared on as the dreaded bastard stood before him. Where is she, equestrian scum? The white unicorn stared on, the moon hitting his multi-blue mane. I couldn't tell you, shouldn't you know you are her father after all? The playfulness in his voice irritated him further, as the unicorn looked at the moon in interest. Don't play with me, boy, you are meddling with things that you can't comprehend. The words hissed out as he glared at Unicorn. The sound of gentle wing beats and hoof steps behind him. Of course the equestrian wouldn't be alone, they didn't do anything alone. Can you enlighten us on what that is? It was that other unicorn. The snide tone was a dead giveaway, both of them always watching the changelings as the meetings went underway, as if we were some sniveling pieces of horse shit that knew only of violence. If you would explain it to us, I'll be more than happy to tell you where they are. It's complicated, and the two of you aren't even on the same level as myself, so answer or I'll crush you under my hoop. Pain, it had felt this before, even as the fangs sunk deeply into its neck and the venom seeped into his body. It had been 20 long years, but he finally found them, Arachne. Ike was why they retreated from their home in the first place. This abomination hunted them mercilessly when she was born, a gem among gems. He had slain the first one, his horn ripping into its partner's neck as the spray of brown blood had permanently covered his coat. A small price to pay for her life, and he had kept it that for so long. His eyes turned to the bodyguard as his body slipped out of consciousness. He hated that bastard so much now, the both of them. Scraw. The word echoed through the desert night, waking every inhabitant as the 4 guards looked on at the hulking beast that just bit into the king's neck. The creature slowly pulled away, its fangs coated in green. "Oh, my equestrians, little nectar, much joy in playing with you all." Shining Armor Horn began glowing as he glared at the beast, a bolt of magic slamming into the beast's front leg. Nothing happened. "What in the hell is that?" The beast leapt backwards, clinging to the hive's wall as it stared on, wondering if it should play with the new pets or go after Chrysalis herself. "Doesn't matter, go help the king, we need to stop the bleeding." Its beady eyes glanced at the unicorn surrounded by the Pegasus. Its orders confused the spider greatly. Did it not know of Arachne's prowess? Did it not fear him like the changelings did? "You will all die today!" Its voice rang out as countless changelings ran out, barreling through the tunnels, all ready to visit Los Pegasus. The hive. Shining Armor stared on as the changeling swarm passed by him. War was imminent, and whatever that thing was, clinging to the changeling's hive was most likely the cause of it. His cerulean gaze turned down, onto the king, stumbling back and forth as blood dripped freely from his neck. The only thing keeping the changeling was most likely his will to fight. "Armor, we need to treat that wound." Soren's yell rose above the changelings, his eyes already scanning the downed king. "Do either of you know any healing magic?" Both unicorns stared upwards at the mysterious creature, and unsaid no as they both prepared to kill the spider. "Fine, I'll figure something out. It can't be that different from a Pegasus body, can it?" Soren glanced at the king's body from afar. He was a certified Wonderbolt medic and not that bad, but he wondered if all the medical knowledge he knew about Pegasi could help him save Metamer's life. "Can you save him, Soren?" The captains watched as the Pegasus stopped in front of the king, his emerald green eyes already scanning over the king's body, looking for any signs of the poison taking effect. "I will just take care of everything else, but I need some time to figure out the poison." His hoof touched the king's eyes, what was once a bright sapphire, now a dull and lifeless ruby red. It must have been whatever that spider injected into him. The Pegasus looked closer at the changeling's wound, the occasional blood tinkling down his neck. The wound was shallow, the Soren could tell that much for sure, and with that he was sure whatever the spider injected into his neck. "What are you?" "I am Arachne, the distinguished pet of Lord Discord himself." It was at that moment that each member of the royal guard realized what they were up against, a remnant of a chaotic plague that once fell Equestria. The changelings were suffering from Equestria's own burden. Its mandibles crossed each other, as the cries of Soren alerted the equestrian guards as King Metamer's 2 fangs dripped with blood. "What happened, Soren? Are you alright?" Shining Armor cringed as he looked at the Pegasus, backed away, his hoof touching the wound as Metamor looked at him. "I got bit. What does it look like happened?" The Pegasus glanced at his wound, his head pounding at the constant blood dripping down his hoof. "What did you do to the changeling king?" All looked on as the spider clicked its mandibles again. The king's head cracked almost in understanding as his horn began to glow. The emerald eyes of Soren became a dull, listless red as he glanced at his captain. The Pegasus' hooves shook as he walked forward, blood dripping down his collar, lunging at his commanding officer, his head slamming into a protective barrier. "What did you do to my friend? What did you do to them? Answer me." His horn glue as the 2 mindlessly crashed into the barrier, their eyes becoming hallowed with rage as they looked on at their target. "I gave them what they wanted, the freedom to forget everything." The spider's mandibles clicked again as the red color in the 2 eyes deepened, the futile struggle against Shining Armor's barrier finally ending. "Don't mince your words, doing that just pisses me off. We can tell you are controlling them, we just don't know how." His eyes not even registering the 2 controlled puppets looking at him, the sunny glow of his aura wrapped around his cards. "What you are doing is unacceptable, so I'm going to kill you and then I'm going to go get Naruto to stop this war. Got it, trash?" His voice echoed out as the cards slammed into Arachne's exoskeleton. His crimson eyes echoed in anger as he watched the spider get back up. The 2 puppets dashed forward, Metamer's horn glowing with a vibrant green hue, intent on ending the unicorn's life as he tripped into the desert ground, his target narrowly avoiding death. "King Metamor, are you still in there? Can you understand anything?" The changeling turned towards the captain, his cerulean eyes sizing the king up as he growled at him. "I guess not." His eyes closed as the galloping of hooves charged at him, his horns slamming into the barrier as it enveloped the king, ending the battle before it truly started. I'm sorry, Metamor, this is the only way I can subdue you without hurting you, now go to sleep. His eyes slowly losing the reddish tint, now a sapphire tint. You equestrians are all the same, too soft. The changeling king grinned as he looked on at the unicorn, his eyes showing nothing but respect and hatred at the same time. He wouldn't retract those orders, not unless this bunch proved they were worth the changeling's time, and even now he saw nothing but disdain for them. Click! The unicorn looked on as the changeling's eyes began turning a deeper red. Green surrounded his horn as it started taking shape, a blade-like shape. What is that thing? The captain looked in wonder as it cut through the barrier like it was tissue paper. His eyes a brighter red as he charged at the unicorn, his horn breaking through the barrier as it slowed down, stopping just in front of Shining Armor's muzzle. The blade-like magic and horns slowly being pulled out as he glared at the unicorn. He's stronger than I originally thought, and that magic I can't even comprehend what it can actually do. Spitfire tackled her longtime comrade and Wonderbolt to the ground as his wings flapped spastically, trying to break free of her grip. She would let the magic folk deal with the bigger problems. This was her subordinate, and she'd be damned if she didn't slap some sense into him. Now calm down, that's an order. His eyes slowly turning back to an emerald green. Much better now, tell me what's going on with you now. I don't know, ma'am, it just this thing it keeps saying bite kill, it's all so confusing. If I don't make it, I wanted to say something since we were junior Wonderbolts. Her hoof pressed against his mouth as she looked at him with understanding. You are making it, soldier. We were not trained to be quitters, do you understand? She looked on at the emerald eyes full of worry and concern. Did this creature have some sort of influence over the mind of every pony it touched and they touched? She slowly removed her hoof, wondering if whatever was bothering him had passed. Click! Spitfire watched the emerald eyes she knew and loved turn ruby red, as the Pegasus front hooves slammed into the mare, pushing her backwards on the ground. This wasn't the Soren she knew, the one that loved pie, racing against recruits and brightening her day to levels she couldn't imagine. His hoof pressed against her throat as she coughed out, trying to push him away. Tears slowly dripping from his eyes as he raised his hoof, slamming it down onto her own as she pushed herself away. I'll save you, Soren, I'll save you, that's a promise. Orange eyes hardened as she flapped her wings once, wondering how much of him was still left in there. Soren, let's play tag. Her words full of resolve, both disappearing in the blink of an eye. The only sound in the desert was the occasional swish as they passed some pony or thing by. Get up, it's you against me, and I'm not wasting time with trash. Oh my, is that the best you have, I goose? The spider's eyes watched as volleys among volleys of cards came crashing down on him. The only thing protecting him was the rock-like armor exoskeleton. Let me fin. Its eyes widened as he braced himself for another onslaught of cards, all intent on taking his life. The dead don't get to speak. His ears didn't register the growl of irritation as the spider got up again. Crescent's plan was simple: find a chink in the spider's armor, and then capitalize on that, and kill the bastard. He watched as it got back up again, his eyes following the beast's legs as the card laid scattered around him, his face turning to a crooked grin as the spires of cards appeared. Countless attempts to skewer his body. Dull thuds echoed between the two as the spires of cards stopped on Arachne's underbelly. What the hell is his skin made of? The unicorn neighed in disapproval as his horn stopped glowing, his mind racing to find a new way to hurt this beast. The spider's eyes trained on the unicorn. It was crafty. Not as crafty as Master Discord. He could play that game too. Arachne did learn from the best after all. Click! His mandibles smacked together, the desert carrying its tune to his wayward puppets. He expected the unicorn to be beaten as he strolled forth to his broken body, savoring the fear he would hold in his eyes, and then he'd sink his fangs into the vermin. His delusions died off as three of his eyes looked left. Those equestrians were holding them back. These vermin were more frustrating than he originally remembered. Can I ask you something? The spider's eyes lazily turned back towards his target, wondering if the unicorn had reached his limit already. It's actually a small question and should be relatively easy to answer, that is, how is Soren affected by whatever is controlling the king? Arachne wished he could grin at the poor equestrian in front of him. Was he that concerned for his fellow comrades he'd forsake his own life to save theirs? If you tell me, I'll make it painless. Crimson eyes stared on. The spider glanced on all 17 eyes staring at him as the moonlight shined down on them. "I'll indulge you, vermin. My venom passes through bites. My mandibles act as a conductor, so when I click them each they enact the sense of mind control. So certain clicks or sounds cause them to do certain things. I have one last question, can it be cured?" Arachne stared on, tilting his head, his spinnerets already hard at work creating strands of web to destroy his opposition. Its back right leg moved slowly around the web, the barbs coated in strands as it moved its right leg forward, entangling the next one with its barbs, and so forth. His front right leg held the tools of the unicorn's downfall. "It can, but you'll never know how." The unicorn looked down at Arachne. The spider shot forward, the strand wrapping around the unicorn's leg, dragging him across the ground, his fangs dripping with venom as the unicorn struggled to get free. "Don't fight it, the strands I make are harder than the rocks you see in this desert." Crescent frowned as a sunny glow enveloped his card, all slamming into the strand, breaking him free from the sticky situation, only for his next leg to be wrapped around in another. "I almost forgot about those, too bad you can't create them, like I can create my endless supply of thread." The spider laughed as the unicorn began untangling his leg. Each tug of his left leg pulled him closer. It was amusing at how crafty the unicorn was, but it bided its time with the vermin long enough. He'd be a meal and nothing more as he hunted down Chrysalis. It was only fitting as the unicorn grasped to his leg, a plea for mercy as his horn began to glow, both disappearing into the night. Earlier in Los Pegasus, a magenta unicorn with harlequin eyes looked on at the brightly lit city in amazement. This was truly a paradise, and they brought her here. Even if it was for 1 or 2 nights, she would make the most of it. "So what do you think? Is it everything you imagined?" The pink Alicorn's voice won finally of sincerity. Chrysalis' eyes gazed at the pirate ship hotel in wonder. "It's amazing, I've never seen anything like it before." The changeling princess ignored the stares of wonder as she hugged Cadence. "I can't thank you enough for this, I mean it." "Well, now that is out of the way, I'm going to enjoy my aunt's work tonight. Naruto, I'll leave her safety to you." The Alicorn giggled as the changeling's coat changed from a magenta to a darker tint. "Now every pony give them space, the prince wants to spend time with her date." Her pink wings already flapping as the crowd gave her much needed space, letting her take off flying on top of one of the building, her gaze turning toward the stars. Naruto watched as Chrysalis backed away, taking cover under his wings, as he gazed at the crowd wondering if they were going to adhere to his cousin's words. Few photographs were taken of the couple before the crowd dispersed in fear of scorn from the Alicorns. "So what should we do first, Naruto? I mean, it all looks so amazing," the changeling said, looking at the various sights Los Pegasus has to offer. "How about we take a tour of it, and find something you like, Chrysalis?" "So anything I want, right?" "Yeah, why?" "I want to go there." His eyes followed her magenta hoof, pointing towards a casino. "I smell lots of emotion in there, so it should be fun." "You are in charge, so let's go." His hooves slowly clacked against the cobble ground, slowly entering the casino. "So what can we do in here?" Harlequin eyes traced over the crowd, people playing countless games of cards, sinking deeper into depression as the dealer flipped the next card over. Countless Pegasus dancing on poles, all looking uninterested as stallions gathered around them. Where is it the smell of happiness? Her eyes turned to a toweled unicorn walking out of an odd-looking door, his face one of relief, the smell of tranquility and peace wafted from him. "I want to go over there, Naruto, it smells nice." Her body already weaving through the crowd as she walked through the strange door, her nose assaulted with the euphoric sense of peace. The Alicorn had only seen this sort of gaze once before. Rarity usually had an identical look when she was in the midst of her current project. "Chrysalis, what's up?" Naruto turned away, staring at the earth ponies servicing countless equestrians in various relaxation techniques. From a simple hoof massage to hot stones, it seemed they did it all openly. "Welcome, how may I help? Oh my, you're the new prince, aren't you? I'm so glad you have decided to visit our luxury spa part of the hotel." A salmon-pink earth stallion grinned as he rubbed his hoof across Naruto's wings, getting a shiver and glare for his troubles. "I'd personally see to it that you are treated with a delicate touch." The Alicorn blinked at the stallion's strange behavior. It wasn't often any pony touched his wings. He would wrap his wings around some ponies, that was just how he showed affection. This, however, seemed wrong though. Don't touch my wings. I see. How about if I polish your horn then free of service? No thanks. You have to let me touch something then. How else can I relax you? Actually, my friend here wants your services. I'm just here to make sure she has a wonderful time. Chrysalis paused. Was that all? Was actually here for to chauffeur her around and pretend he cared? That wasn't what she wanted. The changeling princess enjoyed his tales of bravado, though they seemed far-fetched at times. It was exhilarating to hear those stories. Was it all a lie? It couldn't have been. She smelled his emotions every time they talked. Only sincerity oozed off of him. So what caused this turnabout in his attitude? You mean this portly mare? I guess, though it seems a waste when there are more exotic items out in Los Pegasus. The stallion's eyes followed the magenta mare. Such a disgusting thing, yet here she was with the upper echelon of society. If only he could fill those horseshoes. Can you get some pony else to help my friend out? The Alicorn's words were a bit higher than he initially wanted, but the salmon stallion's reaction was worth it all the same. I don't see why. I'm more than capable enough to help your friend out. No, it isn't that. I'm sure you could aid her in whatever she needed, but every time you smile I want to smash your snide face in. I don't take kindly to those who insult my friends in front of my face. She blinked as he said the word friend. Did he mean it? The anger radiated off of him was a great start if he was telling the truth. But sir, I can help. No, you can't. Chrysalis here has only a short time to spend in Los Pegasus, then she has to go back home. I'm not going to let some random stallion ruin her and my night, so buck off before I make you. It increased as he kept talking. The air was full of anger, as she slowly inched away. Being near him like this was suffocating. The joy was gone, and only hatred and anger radiated from him. Such foul language. I'll go fetch the supervisor then. He turned back towards Chrysalis. Her eyes watered as she shivered unconsciously when his hoof moved forward. Hey, are you alright? That guy was an ass. He's gone though, so come on, we'll go somewhere else. I want to stay, it looks nice here. Naruto, it wasn't him that scared me. It was you. That anger, it was overwhelming, like you were pure malevolence. She shied away as he reached his hoof out to her, the anger disappearing with her revelation. I'm sorry, it's just you seemed so happy and I wanted it to keep that feeling of joy for the rest of the night. So when you said that your job was to make this night wonderful for me, you meant that since I would only be here for such a short time, right? Not anything else. Of course not. I don't have any other reason to see you happy besides that smile. It suits you. The truth washed over Chrysalis like a refreshing tide in the Badlands. I don't mind being pampered here. It's just that stallion's eyes were creepy and he insulted you, then that happened. The duo never noticed as a timid earth mare walked forward. Her silver coat shined deeply. Her amber eyes gazed deeply at the two, smiling. It made her envious of the two's relationship. I guess, but we're going to do something in here that you like, okay? Maybe a show or something. It isn't fair that I'll have all the fun. Her eyes glanced to the left, seeing the timid mare standing there biding her time. Can we help you? Sal said you were being rude, so can you please leave? We just want to help other ponies relax here, not cause trouble. Sal is the pink one, right? The mare nodded at Naruto's question. He insulted my friend when all she wanted to was relax and enjoy herself. Sal can do that sometimes, but we can't overlook your threat of violence despite your stature. It's fine, Naruto and I were leaving anyway. We wanted to relax here for a bit, before going to a show. Please have a nice day, miss. The Alicorn blinked at Chrysalis's change of opinion. Did she smell something funny, or did she just change her mind? His hooves slowly followed after her, his head still in wonder about her. What just happened? She stopped at some gate, her eyes searching for something they could both enjoy together. Let's see the Blue Stall group, Chris, Alicorn, and the amazing Shoei. Which do you think would be a good show, Naruto? The Blue Stall group sounds alright, but what's going on, Chrysalis? Why did we have to leave? He watched her horn glow with an ethereal green glow, picking up the show he chose. Did we really have to leave? No, we didn't, but it wouldn't have been right. I don't understand. We did nothing wrong, Chrysalis. No, we didn't, but even so, forcing something like that would be pointless. That mare was terrified of us. The only thing I smelled besides fear was admiration, and that was all. I didn't want to make her fears come true, so we left. That's so cool, Chrysalis. My specialty is reading the emotions of others. Most ignore the obvious and do whatever they want. I'm going to be different. I understand. Let's go find us some seats and maybe you can tell me more. The blonde's interest was always sparked at Chrysalis's attitude. It was different from anything he'd ever seen, and he appreciated that about her. Cadence watched them for a bit. The couple reminded herself of the date's shining armor, and she had. The romantic candlelight dinner was always her favorite, as the unicorn tried to do anything and everything for her, as he bumbled around trying to please her. You remind me of him, Naruto. That aura you exude is something I don't think I could resist if shining armor didn't approach me 2 years ago. Naruto had a great heart, she could say that at least about him. Those eyes never reflected anything he truly felt at the moment. She watched the two laugh and talk amongst each other. Heading off into some random casino, she lost sight of them as the night sky twinkled, her interest going towards her dear aunt's work. A twinkle of yellow had caught her eye. A brief flash of sunny yellow as two figures appeared on one of the casinos. The unicorn directly under the spider, his hooves held on to Arachne's legs. With a powerful shake he was thrown off, sliding across the concrete roof, his hooves already bleeding from the barbs coating the spider's legs. Is this all you have? I expected more from a proud equestrian that spoke so highly of himself and those around him. It took its time as the unicorn scrambled backward, his back hooves only pushing him as he finally stood over him. Crescent stared upwards as the spider hovered over him, the creature's mouth widening as his card spire skewered into the abomination's mouth, brown blood staining the ground, eliciting a laugh from him at its misery. Buck you, and you're stup. Shit, that thing's still alive! The crimson-eyed unicorn braced himself as the front left leg slammed into his body. Arachne's barbed legs tore gashes into the unicorn's stomach, sliding him towards the edge of the casino's roof. See, this is what happens when you oppose Arachne, foolish equestrian. You are going to die not by my fangs. No, you'll be a reminder to those princesses that I still live and their downfall is imminent. The unicorn expected the next blow to be his last. Arachne's right leg already lifted into the air. The scent of Chrysalis was the only thing that stopped him from being impaled. I can smell her, that smell that eluded me for 20 years. It's here and all mine now. You brought me to her, let me repay that kindness by making it painless. The unicorn laughed at the thought of helping the spider, and whatever his obsession with Princess Chrysalis, the spider lifted him with his forelegs, his mouth widening, ready to rip off his head. No, you got it all wrong. If I couldn't beat you, I brought you to the only one stubborn enough to do the damn job. The unicorn's hooves pushed against the legs, freeing his and letting fall towards the citizens of Los Pegasus. The unicorn expected his body to be riddled with pain. His crimson eyes looked upwards at the smiling pink Alicorn that set him on a different roof altogether. Are you all right, Crescent? Your injuries look pretty severe. Her purple eyes traced the wounds across his body. What was he trying to carry out such a reckless action? Surely he would have died. Did you see it? What are you talking about? Changeling's spider, Naruto, in this. She wanted more as he slipped into a deep slumber, blood dripping freely from his body. The unicorn was alive, but she would have to treat him, or he'd most likely bleed out, something she wouldn't allow even if he exhibited nothing but ineptness and the demeanor of someone who cared little for politics. You did well. Her horn glowed with a blue hue as it enveloped his body, the injuries slowly closing as she looked on at the city. Shining armor, please be safe, and don't do anything reckless. Chapter end.
Now watch daily exclusive uncensored lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring Harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.